Let's see how this humanoid robot handles a classic task like picking cotton.
Hello, welcome back.
What's going on?
Not much, man. I'm about to open up the computer and upload some stuff, but yeah, we talked about a lot of crazy ass shit, so I'm not sure exactly where to
Yeah,
start,
yeah, yeah. We about to deduce some shit.
about to deduce the shit. All right, what's your favorite? Let's start with this. What's your favorite?
Give them the deduce.
What's your what's your favorite form of logic, like reduction, deduction, seduction, whatever, all the different ductions, I guess.
Probably one that could cancel logic out. Just like,
Oh, actually, I got a good one for us to kind of look at really briefly. Actually, you reminded me. Okay, have you ever seen this guy called City Tutoring?
um, no. City tutoring. That seems like a very like it seems like it didn't try too hard to name that.
Well, I guess he's a city. I guess he's a tutorer, but he's like this, like
City slicker.
well, he looks like H.P. Lovecraft or something like that, like how I would imagine H.P. Lovecraft to look.
Have you ever seen
Um,
an H.P. Lovecraft picture?
I think I have, but it's been a long time.
It's pretty funny. Like he looks funny. Like he's got like a V-neck sweater. Like he looks kind of weird. Like he looks like a real nerd. You know, if you look at the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian and the guy who wrote Lovecraft, they look like real nerds.
Well, this guy definitely looks like a real nerd for sure. So maybe I'm onto something here, but he might be the reincarnation of H.P. Lovecraft. So there is that. But he's like this hardcore Christian, I guess you'd say. Um, but he's a very unique hardcore Christian, I would say as well. Let me see if I can bring this up. Let's see here. I'm gonna open up my stuff. Let's see what I got. But yeah, he was making this very interesting argument about his view on Christianity, and I thought it's worth looking at. And I actually don't want to do too much video watching, although we probably will. But I think this is actually worth just watching a few minutes of, just because I think if you've never seen this guy, I'd be interested to get your take on him. Let me just open it up really quick. But yeah, so what do you let's so you said canceling out logic. Or wait, can you say canceling out philosophy or logic? I don't want to misquote you.
Yeah, I was being too. I was kind of joking, but yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, I know I like in math, I like problems where they expose the limitations of math. I would appreciate something similar in logic, right? So
right.
Now, there's probably a way through logic to get beyond it, and that's what I'm most interested in.
That reminds me. Did you? Oh shit! I have my. Okay. Did you see my appearance on Myth Vision?
No, not yet. I haven't seen the Caleb Maupin or the Myth Vision. We could review that.
Yeah, that would
And
be
I could
interesting.
like
Actually.
maybe, yeah, because I've been planning on reviewing that with you. So maybe
Yeah,
we could
actually,
review.
yeah. That would be interesting, actually.
Yeah, why
Yeah,
don't we
yeah,
do that?
yeah.
And maybe I'll start up a stream on Cyber Caliphate called "Smoking Neuro Crack with Neuro Jack 3."
Well, you can actually just stream this directly to there from there. I have that up there at
Yeah,
the
no,
top. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I invited some other people to come. I don't know if they're going to come, so we might get derailed. But I invited good people, so I'm trying to leave it as a surprise because I don't know if they're going to show up or not. But hopefully they will. Let me show you the city tutoring thing really quick, and then let's do the Derek Myth Vision because it was pretty short. Um, but it was good because they opened up a panel. Oh, here we go. Got it. Okay, hold on 1 second here. All right, just let me know if you can see this video when I share it.
I'm not seeing anything yet. Just
Yeah,
Lovecraft.
yeah. Well, this guy looks. I think this guy does look like Lovecraft, so I might be right actually. So wait till you see this guy. Okay, do you see this guy's face?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
Oh, sorry
You
about
got to
that.
remove the other one. It'll say
Oh,
it's sharing the screen, but you got to remove the other one to share the other one.
got
That's
it.
how it
All
works
right,
now.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I noticed they
Oh
changed some
yeah, he
shit.
definitely does look like Lovecraft for sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's listen a little bit of this. I'm not gonna like belabor this too much, but I want to get your general take because it's he just goes on and on and on. So like, but he
Why?
says is
Yeah, I am a Christian, right? Yeah, this has got to be interesting. These are always interesting testimonials
yeah.
of faith.
Hey,
Yeah.
this guy, but me and Pillater watch this guy a lot because he's kind of like he's like a like if you want to see what a real scary Christian looks like, this guy is actually scary. Like this dude would. I used to have the same tie this guy's wearing, by the way, or a very similar tie. Um, but yeah, this really interesting. Like this guy, like if this kind of guy got in charge of the government, like this is the kind of Christian that would like do some shit. You know what I mean? But he doesn't seem like it. But listen to the way this guy's talk. I want to show you this. All right. Let me know how the audio.
Yeah, he looks like he'd start like the Neon Genesis program. You know,
One
where
happy
like
Sunday to you all.
they
If you
start
are new
inducting
to the
kids
channel, let
like
me introduce myself.
to do research like on the aliens.
It's something like that for sure.
My name is Alfred Cromwell, and I am the founder and president of an academy called City Tutoring. And we specialize in pure mathematics, but we also teach many other subjects, including history, political science, religion, logic, and rhetoric, and all of those things. But my particular area of focus is pure mathematics. And if you are new to the channel, every Sunday, time permitting, I try to come up with a moral message to address the questions of the day to our young people. But I started a series last Sunday on why I am a Christian, because a lot of people ask me to answer the question. They say, you keep saying you are a Christian, you keep saying this and that. Why do you not justify, why do you not answer the question why you are a Christian? So because I take this very seriously, I didn't want to just do one video saying, oh, I'm a Christian because A, B, and C. That's very infantile. That's ridiculous. You have to, when you are going to justify a religion and an ideology, you must be prepared to expound upon it and to be able to come up with the proper arguments and address all the issues that come up. So this is going to take months to do. So that's why I began with a series.
Yeah, I can appreciate his thoroughness and explaining.
This dude is intense, man. I'm telling you, like very intense guy.
But yeah, he's right. You know, but I don't think Christianity is an ideology. I don't think he phrased that appropriately, or to see Christianity through an ideological lens. You know, because if I were to cast someone as a Christian, I would think of them as maybe having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ or something like that. You know, not necessarily following an ideological set of values. Right? or be able to defend them at all. Right. So I think
we have to proceed now. If you are interested.
Yeah, I think it's just weird how he's saying this is what it means to be a Christian, is to be able to defend an ideology. I don't think that necessarily follows from the experience of most Christians. But yeah.
Interested in the topic, you can look at the video from last Sunday. But we can proceed now from the austere region of first principles into that broader and in some respects more commanding domain, the domain of history. Because philosophy establishes what must be, but history records what has been. And when the testimony of both converges upon a single point, the human mind is left not with a suggestion, but with a summons. And I wasn't going to make this video today, actually, because I wanted to take, I actually do have later on, I hope I can have enough time. I don't want to leave anyone stranded. I was going to do a nature walk. I'm going to some caves today later on. The bandits used to use those caves in the 19th century. But we have a great history in America of our own folk. Not that I'm glorifying being an outlaw, but if you are God's outlaw, then you are always welcome to be with me. And a lot of our pioneer ancestors were very much very bold men. And
this guy's kind of based, honestly. This guy's kind of based. I like his comment about history and ideas.
yeah, that's why I like this guy. Like, he's very like I'm telling you, like, this dude, like, he definitely would, if he was born in a different era, like, he would be like a nobleman that would like plot on someone and like sneak in.
Well, he reminds me of OG Rose. I don't know if you got a chance to look at his stuff.
I don't think so.
But his stuff is sort of like Christian, I'm sort of like Christianity, first principles, like Gödel's theorem, like, you know, and his inflection is very similar to this guy. So
interesting. Yeah.
So
guy, I think this guy might be the reincarnation of H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not even joking with you. Like, I think he's like a very, like, this is how I would imagine that H.P. Lovecraft would have been like in real life. Like, I'm not a big expert.
Have you ever seen Jonathan Bowden and his lectures?
Sounds familiar. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, he's given like he gave some pretty good lectures on Lovecraft. But yeah, there's this guy named Jonathan Bowden who's part of some like Black Gnostic society or some shit.
Yeah,
that explains like like he'll explain like Lovecraft and Savitri Devi and stuff. I gotta send you this guy.
Yeah, I've been running into people on Twitter that are like have like a picture of Savitri Devi as their fucking picture, and I was like, this is interesting. I was like, I've never seen something like that before. I'm like, okay.
She by the way was promoting veganism too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That is very interesting. It's pretty.
Because she purported to be like a Hindu. I mean, she purported herself to be a Hindu, moving to India to practice Hinduism. But yeah,
interesting. Esoteric Hitler Hinduism. All right, let's see. I'm gonna play a little bit more of this, and then we'll go to the myth vision real quick.
Well, anyway, so I hope I have enough time to do this. But I'm going to begin, and plus I have church in later on. But I want to begin with a fact that is simple, immense, and I dare say it's going to be inescapable. It's a fact which rests not upon conjecture. You know, those of you who have been watching this channel for a long time, we do not approve of conjecturists. It doesn't depend either upon private persuasion, but upon the unanimous witness of the ages. And it is this, the question, that there has always existed upon the earth a religion which proclaims itself to be not the invention of man, but the revelation of God. Not the product of speculation, but the result of a divine initiative. And it is not a counsel offered, but a law imposed. And this religion meets us at the very cradle of the human race. It accompanies man throughout the long and troubled centuries of his history. You will see it appear under different forms, and yet always with the same essential claim, that God has spoken and that man is bound to hear and to obey. And when we examine, not superficially, but with the seriousness the matter demands, the development of this religion across time, we do not find a chaos of contradictory systems, but actually a remarkable unity unfolding itself through three great and successive phases, distinct indeed in their outward form, and yet precisely and profoundly one in their origin, their substance, and their end. And these three phases are what we designate as the primitive, some of you might say patriarchal religion. Patriarchy is not a bad word on this channel. And those feminists who don't like the word, who use it pejoratively, I laugh at you. The Mosaic religion, and finally we get the Christian religion. But let us, however, restrain ourselves within the bounds of method. We shall not yet affirm, we cannot affirm yet, for the purposes of today's debate, their divine origin. And we cannot anticipate the conclusion toward which we are advancing. We shall describe, I shall observe, we shall analyze, but I will not yet judge. And the first of these phases, the primitive or patriarchal religion, is that religion which God imposed upon the first parents of the human race at the very moment of their existence. It was not a vague sentiment. It was not an intuition of dependence, but it was a religion containing determinate truth revealed that were not discovered, truth which no unaided, I should say, human reason could have attained. Among these were the existence of good and evil spirits, of angels faithful and angels fallen, Satan, for example. And after the catastrophe of the fall, the promise that it was at once mysterious and consoling of a redeemer, a liberator, destined to restore what had been lost. And this religion contained not only dogmas, but precepts, positive obligations imposed upon man, the observance of sacred times, the offering of sacrifice, acts by which man acknowledged both his dependence upon God and his responsibility before a holy and perfect God. And that is why we must speak upon this subject in such a serious manner, because it affects every single question of the day. And this religion was universal. It bound all men without exception. And until the coming of Christ, it sufficed to guide the human race towards its final end. It was preserved, as all such truth must be preserved, by a double means. You have conscience, first of all, in which the natural law is inscribed by the Creator himself, and by tradition. And that is that living transmission by which revealed truths and positive precepts pass from generation to generation. But here we encounter, as always, the instability of human nature. Man does not faithfully preserve what is entrusted to him. By sin, the intellect is darkened. By passion, you have the will is corrupted. By habit, the moral sense is degraded. And the precepts of the natural law are no longer read with clarity. The distinction between good and evil becomes confused. And tradition itself, passing through the frail custody of fallen men, becomes altered, corrupted, disfigured. And thus the primitive religion, though it was divine in its origin, becomes obscured in its transmission. It was then that God, in his providence, intervened, not to abandon his work, but to preserve it. And he chose Abraham and his posterity. And through the patriarchs, there's that word again, he confirmed the earlier revelation. He clarified it. He added new truths and new precepts. Among them, you have the right of circumcision. And thus the primitive religion received its first development. And from this moment, it bears with equal propriety you get the name patriarchal. And yet man, as history relentlessly attests, continued to deviate. And God, in his infinite mercy, resolved once more to act, to guide more firmly, to instruct more clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's many things that he's explaining. I feel no reason to doubt most of what he's said. But then again, expanding out from there, right, there does seem to be critical instances in which sort of Zoroastrianism, obviously the mysterious origins of Judaism, he's sort of blown past. Right, he said he doesn't have to describe those things.
Oh,
right,
well,
but
he mentions Judaism very specifically soon. So,
right. Well, he did. He said it's going from Judaism to Christianity, but it seems like patriarchal societies or legal sort of kinships that are enforced through sort of legal standards through priests, that doesn't sort of require Judaism and then Christianity, right? And then it's hard to sort of denote in what sense really that's sort of borrowing from these things that he's calling first principles, right?
Well,
Which is sort of, yeah,
I
or
think he
natural
kind
law.
I think he kind of believes something to the effect, kind of like I do, where it's like, and I think you may believe this too. I can't remember. I don't want to like, syncretize or believe too much, but I think it's because I don't know exactly, but I think it's like I think what he says is something to the effect that like you said, he's like, there's this ancient faith that always existed, and that is Christianity. But like I mean, honestly, I think he's saying Judaism is basically just a Christian heresy. I think that's kind of what he's trying to say, but he's trying to say it in a very like obtuse way, kind of like. Um, and he might say the same thing of Zoroastrianism as well, honestly. Because that's honestly like how I justify Christianity. So like, and I think from what you told me about Islam, maybe Islam kind of sees himself as the same way, where it's like this is an ancient faith, and then everything else has kind of like been a heresy that's kind of been.
Yeah, I think he's taken more of a approach where the authority of Christianity rests on the fact that Judaism had this patristic legalistic code and that it sort of reinforces it. But I'm like kind of not understanding too much if he's taking that sort of progressive approach by saying that it was Judaism then Christianity, or if like you said, he's saying more so that Judaism is a sort of side project. It'd be interesting to find that out. But yeah, but I think he just now started talking about Abraham, so I'm interested to see where he goes. So far, he said very little. He's just said that Christianity, in line with first principles, in line with the revealed truth of God, basically represents a true patristic, legalistic system that has survived till now. And he says that certain legal rites of passage, like circumcision, served as an improvement on those pagan customs. And so, yeah, it seems pretty standard understanding that he's laying forward so far. But yeah.
Religion. And through Moses and the prophets who followed him, God renewed and deepened the revelation already given. He revived the knowledge of the natural law, the so-called natural law. I tend not to use that term, but I'm using it since I have a broader audience so that you all understand where I am coming from. I know many of you are not Christian. I know some of you are Muslim people. I even have some Jews watching the channel as well. But we are all welcome to the debate. And a lot of the people who watch the channel, actually, they're very much grounded in their own religion, which I have a lot more respect for those people. I have far more respect for a Muslim, a Mohammedan, or a Jew who is true to his true identity than I have for some of these wishy-washy, agnostic, atheist, Western, decadent, degenerate types. I have no respect for you. But he reaffirmed the earlier truths. He imposed new.
Yeah, that's basically based because as much as those people think that those sort of experiences into like looking into drugs or hanging out at parties or dabbling in the occult, that those things open them up to new vistas of understanding, it usually dulls them. It usually seems like they've been darkened, and it seems like there's a sort of vistas they can't go down because they engaged in those things. Instead, it doesn't seem like it opened them up. So so for most of those people, yeah, I definitely respect somebody who's grounded in their views, more than somebody who's sort of just trying to figure things out, hanging around, and thinks that extremely common sort of low-level things have sort of opened them up to new vistas of imagination where they clearly have not displayed such a thing.
Precepts. But the revelation was not given in obscurity, but under circumstances of extraordinary solemnity on Mount Sinai. The circumstances designed to engrave themselves upon the memory and conscience of an entire people. Think about that for a moment. And so the Mosaic law, therefore, is a body, yes, of dogmas, dogma, yes, dogma, and precepts that are revealed principally in that instance to the Jewish people, to the, more properly stated, to the Hebrew people. And it is not universal in its immediate application, nor is it destined to endure for all time. Its mission is actually preparatory. It exists to prepare the coming of the Messiah. And for this reason, it is not brought to its final perfection. That perfection actually is reserved for the religion which the Messiah himself will establish, the Christian religion. And when the appointed time had come, when the long expectation of centuries had reached its fulfillment, the Redeemer appeared. And with him, the third and final phase, the Christian religion. And this religion that was given, obviously, by Christ himself, that is why it is called the Christian religion, contains all that preceded it, the truths of the natural law, the revelations of earlier ages, but it contains them in a manner incomparably clearer, more certain, more perfect. It presents not only truth and precepts, but also the supernatural aids that are necessary for their fulfillment. It abrogates the Mosaic law in all that was particular to the Jews, to the Jewish race of people, and it becomes the religion of all men for all time. That's why I've always said, I've always told the Jews, and if you're a Jew and you're watching, I'm going to tell you this, the Christians, we are a better version of you. We are an improved version of you. Our ancestors knew that. Our Christian ancestors knew that very well. That's why you were shunned in many cases, because you didn't, you rejected the perfection of the faith that was through Jesus Christ. And it will receive no further development after Christ. It is definitive. And thus we arrive at a conclusion of the highest importance. The three religions, primitive, the Mosaic, and the Christian, they are not three separate inventions, but they are actually one and the same religion.
See, there you go.
Centuries. They have the same author, the same
See,
end, the same fundamental means. They all rest upon a redeemer, and the moral law is common to them.
I think he's going too far with that.
Revealed progressively are present from the beginning, at least in the germination of the principles.
Yeah, that seems like because see, now he's saying that that Christians are better Jews, even though not pointing out the fact that Judaism was corrupted. Right. And then also not really pointing out the fact that paganism is not a true reflection of Christianity. Right. If he's going to say that the primitive religion and Judaism are in line with each other. Right. Which kind of seems like it's not true. Right. Because wasn't the true religion taught to Adam? Right. And then Adam and all those people. So when did humanity really lose the true religion? Right? It doesn't really make sense. If you read the Bible, it doesn't really make any sense, right? That they'd lose it, right? There's pagans worshiping false gods. That has nothing to do with it, right? So I mean, yes, there's lots of true things that the pagans say, right? Because they have correct histories, they have correct, understanding of certain deep down sort of metaphysical truths. Right, but that doesn't actually mean that they possess a continuity of a revelation from God. Right, they have nothing of the sort. Right, so I'm rather confused at the assertion, but I understand what he's saying. Right, but then, I mean, in line with that, right? I mean, and this is where sort of it gets interesting for Christians and Muslims, because Muslims say that law was never really abrogated to a certain extent. There's only like a couple aspects of it that were truly abrogated, in the sense of what's happened. But I think maybe there's a continuity even in the Gospels. Right, I believe, where Jesus sort of points out the fact that he's beholden to the law and so on and so forth of the prophets and so on and so forth. Yeah. And I know how that sounds. It sounds like I'm being anti-pagan and pro-Jewish, but I'm not doing anything of the sort, right? Because as I reiterate, he failed to mention how the Jews were also corrupted, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I get you. But that's why I wanted to show this to you, because maybe you're catching things I didn't really catch on to. So that's kind of why I kind of want to see your take, so I can kind of comprehend where he's coming from exactly, because he says some things at in the middle of this video that are kind of like threw me off.
And so it is one religion, advancing, unfolding, reaching its perfection. And now the question presses itself upon us with irresistible force. Is this religion truly divine? Did God reveal it? Did he impose it upon man? And so this is the question that we are to examine. But before we undertake that demonstration, it is necessary, we must remove certain obstacles, objections, which in our age particularly present themselves with great confidence, though not always, hardly ever, with equal substance. And there are three preliminary questions which must be addressed. What is the role of reason in matters of faith? The nature of the mysteries contained in religion, and the third thing, the means by which reason itself can establish the fact of a divine revelation. So let us begin with the first. We have to begin with the first. There exists in our time, we have a doctrine today. It is a doctrine. They claim it is not, but there is no neutrality ever. But it's loud, it's confident, and it's profoundly mistaken. And it goes by the name of rationalism, even though the nowadays, I know that there was a time when there was a very serious rationalist movement, but I'm talking about the people who claim to be atheistic today, the people who claim to be logical, they are anything but. And they assert that revelation, faith is defined in this instance, faith in a divine authority either annihilates reason or renders it useless. And nothing could be more utterly false. The church, with a clarity and firmness which leave nothing to be desired, has addressed this very question. You see, there exist two orders of knowledge that are distinct both in their principle and in their object. In their principle, because in one we know by natural reason, and in the other by divine faith. In their object, because there are truths accessible to reason, and others, mysteries hidden in God, which can only be known if they are revealed. But, and here is the point which rationalism persistently refuses to accept or to understand, I'm not sure which of them, but faith is above, though faith is above reason, there can never be any real disagreement between them. For the same God who reveals is the God who has given us reason. And God cannot and does not contradict himself. Truth cannot oppose truth. And it's more than this. Faith and reason do not merely coexist, they assist one another. Reason prepares the way for faith. It demonstrates its foundations. It examines its credentials. And the faith, in turn, elevates reason, protects it from error, and enriches it with truth which it could never have discovered on its own. And so far from suppressing reason, revelation perfects it. And scripture itself confirms this doctrine. Far from demanding blind credulity, it warns us against it. Do you not see what the Bible says? It says, he that is hasty to give credit is light of heart. Believe not every spirit, but try these spirits. Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. And again, we are commanded to be ready to give a reason for the hope that is in us. You know, it's funny because a lot of these people, a lot of these clowns, these anti-Christian clowns, they're the most gullible people I know.
Yeah, like he's got the formula correct, because revelation is above faith and faith is above reason, technically speaking, right? Because it would seem like there's nothing in faith to cancel out revelation. There's nothing in reason to cancel out faith, right? Yet, as he said, faith does not have to sort of rely on reason, but reason, I think, often does rely on some sort of faith, in terms of its final justification or its, ultimate, sort of like presupposition or whatever, right? There's a lot of faith there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know
Well,
that's how that sounds to an empiricist, right? Because they're saying, why would I need those things? You don't, but it does make life richer, right?
yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because that's he's putting eloquently what I was trying to convey to Derek from Myth Vision, and so thank you, Philly G 1978. I think somebody might be joining us soon, so we'll see. Hopefully that's the case. So thank you for joining and watching. But yeah, so let me see. Let me just switch to the Myth Vision, because what I'll do is I might go back and forth, because this is kind of what I was trying to say to Derek. So, and I honestly, I know I did not do a good job, but I was extremely distracted, and I'm not really the best, like, philosophically inclined person, honestly. So, but I definitely think it was a funny interaction. So, but I would like a little feedback and see what you think of, like, my line of argumentation with this guy was. So, did particularly well, talking to, like, people like Jade Iyer and Andrew Wilson and stuff like that. That's where I first really started watching you, but I've seen you around. So, and I think you bring up interesting points. I definitely don't agree with you, obviously, because I'm a Christian, but I think that you do some very interesting thought experiments. So I appreciate that about you.
I thank you for the compliment. It's interesting. I guess it's whoever you ask, on what they think about how that engagement with. I self-confessedly am not an ortho bro. I don't really care for the arguments. It usually tries to put the burden on the people that they're trying to win an argument with, and it doesn't feel like a sincere approach to really getting at the gospel, getting at the revelation of Scripture, really getting at why Christianity. Sure, philosophy is involved, no matter what you do, but it's like feels more like a, if I'm being frank, dick measuring contest, and I'm just being honest.
Phil bros don't have a sincere bone in their body.
It's hard for me to take them serious when I've seen how the behavior is and that kind of stuff. So, but I do appreciate the compliment. And of course, I do think I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't sincerely think what I'm doing makes the most sense. But being you're a Christian, and thank you for being the first to come on, why should we become a Christian is the question, right? Sincerely, why are you convinced that me or Dalton should become Christians?
So that's a great question, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to answer. So I appreciate you saying that. So I'll put it like this: I'm from your part of the world. Let's put it that way. I grew up in that culture. I now live, on the left coast. That's very atheistic. So I've seen the difference of mindsets very vividly, I think you'd say. And I'll put it like this: like, I think that you could agree, at least in some sense of the word, that, like, where we come from in the world is a very special place where people do strive for morality, and they do strive towards certain higher level virtue, right? Now, is this replicable in other belief systems? I think perhaps to some degree, but it's almost like English, right? Like, one of my friends says something to the effect that, like, English is a category of the mind, right? And when people speak English, they start thinking as an Englishman or a Germanic person in some sense, right? Now, I'm going to kind of put it that way for Christianity. And for example, like, you're not convinced that Christianity is true in any sort of logical way, but definitely you've seen the fruits of Christian thought, and you're definitely, thinking in the terms of a Christian. And I can see that in a lot of your work, if that makes any sense, right?
Well, I would say that as someone who spends quite a lot of time talking to Christians on TikTok, a lot of the fruit that I receive from believers is not very good fruit.
Oh, I would 100% agree with you on that. And, and that's a fair point, I think. And I think you guys have done a good job of, exposing a lot of the hypocrisy, and I would say also I'm trying to use the right, nice terminology, because we're on YouTube, obviously, but there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing as well, where people just use faith as a shield to guard them from criticism. One of my favorite sayings. Welcome, Jack.
Hey.
How was your show?
It was good. We hung out with the bros. Oh, look, Phil's here. Yeah.
Did your
Yes, some of
Did
them
your
did follow me over. Huh?
did your
How do
did
I
your
get rid of this screen? What?
did your Baphomet move at all, or
I don't have the Baphomet anymore.
oh,
I mean, I
hell
have him. No, that's not true. I have him. He's right here. I just don't use him anymore. Oh, you have me on circle.
yeah, you're in a
Yeah,
circle.
you're
Kind of like.
yeah, you're perfectly in time. Basically, you came just in time for this video here. You know, basically.
I'm seeing two screens and it's throwing me off bad. Is there?
I think you can reduce it down or something. High vertical.
We can't on our end.
Let me hide.
only on his end.
Is that
Okay.
better? Is it better now?
No, it's still there, but I'll live with it.
I'm sorry about that. It should give you I think if you go to settings or something, it should have a way to like hide vertical. It should say hide vertical. So I
It
think
does from the owner's end, but I don't know if viewers can hide it.
I hit it. Let me see. Double check. I appreciate you bringing it up because I'm not the best with StreamYard. So let me see. I know how annoying. I know how those little things are like really annoying. So how do you
I'm seeing everything twice. Who is Derek?
Yeah, and the 4 people watching on Cyber Caliphate, unveil yourselves. You know,
Right.
who you be? You know,
who you be is Derek is Myth Vision. He's a famous atheistic kind of person.
Yeah, I follow him somewhere. I didn't know who. I didn't know what even it was, but they keep coming across my feed. Apparently, I subbed at some point.
You just thought he was hot, so you followed him. I get it.
Well, he is. So, for someone half my age. Bible guy's not too bad either. Who's this Neuro Jack guy at the bottom?
Oh, I don't know. He's he's a LARPer. You know, he looks like wearing a Indian feather dress guy. So don't trust him for sure. But yeah, so this is just me trying to convince him to be a Christian, and I don't really want to watch all of it because I don't.
Who are you trying to convince? Bible guy or Derek?
Well, both of them.
I thought they were both Christians.
The whole premise was to bring up Christians and like try to convince them to be a Christian. And so I kind of went into this argument with them. And I was basically saying like, well, everybody's kind of anyone who speaks English or lives in the West, we kind of have like a cult. I was trying to say that like we all kind of like have some level of Christianity within us, right? Like you can't fully escape it. You're still kind of swimming in it one way or the other. Is kind of what I was saying.
Is that enough to make you Christian?
Well, I was just trying to get him to admit that, like, even if he doesn't like Christianity, he's still like, he's kind of still accepting some of it because, like, even you as a Satanist, right? Like, you still accept cultural Christianity.
Yeah, I'm not really a Satanist anymore, but I consider myself a Christian Satanist. It's all part of the same mythology.
Wow, interesting. So what are you now?
I don't know.
Oh, I like it. All right.
I left. I had like a brief little spiritual crisis and left the Satanism, but it keeps kind of coming back in little spurts. I think I'm still culturally Christian Satanist, but I don't think either one captures the full range of my spiritual needs. So I'm trying to find something that encompasses all of it, and I haven't yet.
Right.
So maybe you can convince me to turn Christian because I definitely have that side in me. I have a Christian side and I have a satanic side.
Well, I think that we all have that to some degree. So I think admitting it is definitely like a good thing in general. Machine, do you have any feedback on what I said so far? Because I don't know exactly what I said, but I was really speaking off the top of my head the whole time. So, which I usually do, honestly. So. Nothing new there.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. You're kind of saying what Jeff is saying. You know that like there's a certain sense in which atheists are or people who follow different religious systems are allowed to be that because of a sort of cultural milieu that's laid down by Christians, right? So So that's kind of like what you're saying is like that they still benefit from Christian values, right? Even though they don't participate in Christianity, right?
You know what that reminds me of? It's kind of like when people say like, well, you're white, you benefit from. I'm not saying you're saying this. I'm just saying it's like it reminds me of when people say like, you're white, you benefit from white privilege, whether you're
Christian
Right,
privilege.
exactly, right.
But that is kind of what I'm arguing in a way. Like I'm kind of saying that. I'm like, you kind of have like Christian privilege.
I think a lot of people, including myself, would think of Christianity as believing in the resurrection, creation, possibly original sin, something like salvation. So there's a extra physical dimension to it. There's an afterlife. There's a spiritual dimension. Otherwise, I agree you could be culturally Christian and still secular.
Right.
But I think true Christians would expect something more, like subscribing to some kind of belief beyond just this world.
But I guess what you could say is like, would you say that some people, maybe even including yourself, like they kind of say, well, I like certain aspects of like Christian culture or Christian beliefs, so I'll just kind of cherry pick, like I like this stuff, but I don't really want to believe in like the fantastical side of it. Would you say something like that?
Yeah, I'd say any of that's possible, but would other people accept that as being real Christian, true Christian?
Well, that's
It's
kind of
like
what
one of the cornerstones of Christianity that I'm aware of is a belief that Christ died for your sins, or that he's a personal savior. So to me, that goes beyond just ethical Christianity or cultural Christianity. It's a metaphysical commitment.
Right. I see. Well, I think I do try to argue the metaphysical side with them. I can't remember exactly what I said, but let's see. I try to move pretty quick, so let's see how quick I got there.
Or
All right.
Being judged or something like that. And I think that that is a major problem, right? But I would still argue that like on some level, especially if you look at something like Orthodox Christianity, the actual belief structure itself, not necessarily the version of it that we're seeing online. That it is kind of like the standard of morality that's kind of existed in Western civilization for a long period of time. Now, has it been abused from the beginning till now? Absolutely. If that makes any sense.
If I may just let me make sure I'm not hearing any background noise here. If I may just chime in here just to say, like, one of the things I've done with my deconstructing, I would just say my heightening of my skepticism and why the threshold for believing in Christianity has gone up is, I don't know if you've been paying attention. There's a debate happening right now between Matt Dillahunty, Alex O'Connor, and another philosopher over are claims equal to evidence. And like, this is a philosophical debate that's going on between these guys, and one side thinks they're right, and the other side thinks they're right. And is testimony, enough for evidence? Is testimony evidence? And what kind of evidence is it? All these kinds of things. And when you bring a claim, and they're going through this, for example, the guy goes, "Hey, I bought a soccer ball at the store." If you know your friend's into soccer, that testimony will heighten the evidence claim and make you probably 90 to 95%. You wouldn't probably doubt your friend bought a soccer ball at the store. It's not like a belief to accept, but also it makes sense. He's into soccer, that kind of stuff. So it can be used as evidence. And so we hear testimony. We have written literature that is saying to do good things according to the philosophy of the New Testament, claims of resurrection, and these things. What happened to me, and I'm taking the long way to get around to pointing out what I mean by morality, is much of the ethics we find in the New Testament are inspired directly from the philosophies in the pagan world that existed by the philosophers such as the Stoics, the Platonists, Epicureans even. I mean, there were Cynics. A lot of scholars have identified Cynic philosophy in Jesus' words. And so what I'm getting at is like, yes, Christianity ended up dominating the world, no doubt. Islam might be next. It proves nothing of the validity, and you're not making that argument that, it is. I'm just making the point that if the ethics of, let's say, Islam had fruition, and then eventually, let's say, Islam tamed itself from its more radical aspects, we started seeing some positive things. Eventually, they abolished some horrific ideas or whatever. And then all along, the apologists in the Islamic realm just say, all along, these were the truths. It just took a long time for Muslims to finally come around and see them and things like that. And yes, they made a lot of change in large portions of the world. The morality claim to me is just like, there are plenty of societies that thrive quite well.
Well,
Who's the guy you're
it's
trying to
best
convince?
if I stay silent on that point.
They're both wanting me to convince them.
Oh, I thought they were. Is Bible guy already Christian?
No, he's not. They
Neither
both
of them are Christian. They're
Christian.
They're skeptical about Christianity. They believe they most likely believe that Christianity is based on myths similar to the pagan myths, right? That was then right, but usually it takes like radical sort of skeptic to put it in that line of historical claims, because see, Jesus is seen as a historical person, and many of Jesus's cohorts are seen as historical people, like Paul, right? Like, for example, Paul and Jesus give us lots of historical information about Galilee, and all of those places that are mentioned, right, within those Judea and Galilee, and all those all these places, right? So like the Sea of Galilee and all these like historical landmarks are mentioned, whereas like if you read like like the Homeric myths, you won't find like anything real in there. It's like they're describing like basically like a fantasy world, right? So it's saying like, well, this, because it seems more true, right, and it's based on and this is where Neuro could sort of hit him back, right, and say, well, yes, those Greeks, right, like the Greek philosophers, they thought monotheism was much more rational than the pagan system, right? So that's where Christianity sort of supplants the pagan myth, right, in terms of being more advanced, so to speak, and that's how a lot of thinkers have, a lot of historical thinkers have, phrased it.
That is kind of where I backed him into a corner, and I think they got panicked a little bit, honestly. But that comes later, yeah. But what Jeff's got something rolling.
I'm lost about the I'm lost because the Homeric myths refer to historical places that are lost to us currently, but they weren't to the people at the time, like the audience of the actual myths of the time. And I missed the part about bringing in. Are you saying like because there's historical evidence for some of the biblical stories that makes it more correspondently true, or more likely to be?
No, I'm saying from their perspective, right? He's saying that something like the Greek or the pagan philosophies are just as advanced as Christianity because they contain the same sort of ethical truths, right? I'm saying, well, no, they contain way more than the ethical truths. They contain historical continuity, right, through the references to the places and the geography, but they also contain a sort of metaphysical continuity because it's a monotheistic system, the same way that Plato described. Right, Plato was a deist.
A lot of Christianity is based on the Greek like substrate, especially particularly Plato. I mean, Plato was a theologian before Christ.
Right, exactly. So they repurposed those ideas, right? So to speak. But in another sense, those ideas were not accepted by the pagans. Like, for example, Plato's monotheism was rejected by the pagan Greeks.
And also, I don't think that, I mean, the Greek ethical system and moral system is definitely not the one that is the foundation for our current Western ethics. I think we do draw on the Christian system,
right? So
the Greek or pagan system,
right? So
yes, they had a system of ethics, but it's not the one that ultimately made its way into Christianity and through Christianity into the West.
Well,
right, exactly.
If I hadn't been so distracted, probably what I would have tried to argue is like, and I kind of say it at the end, which I don't want to say the line that I think I say it in. I'd be interested. I just don't want to like say too much because I want to genuinely see your reaction. But I think what I would have said is something to the effect of like, is your problem with Christianity that it's like the big dog, in that if it was just something else, anything other than Christianity, you would just be coming for it as well? Like, is it just because it's like a predominant thought or what? Like,
is he woke?
I mean, they say they're not woke, but in my opinion, they definitely are. Like, it's definitely like a undercurrent of wokeness for sure. I mean, so much of this stuff is like woke. I mean, my biggest problem is that it's like this like obtuse blindness where it's convenient, and then other times it's like laser focused on like one or two things to like prove their point, but then they ignore everything else that like is inconvenient to their position, right? So
yeah, they're seen as not scholarly in some ways, like sort of like a conspiracy channel, because mythicism is not accepted by a majority of scholars. Is what I was trying to explain. Right?
What is
Most
mythicism exactly?
like mythicism is basically the idea that basically Jesus was not a historical figure, right? That they basically constructed a mythical person, right, in order to create a religion, right? So that's the first aspect of it, and then it goes on from there. It may also argue that other characters were made up and fabricated as well, or that there, or that maybe Christianity itself is not a religion on its own, but it was sort of hijacked by either pagan religions or Jewish midrash, right? So it was either a combination of Jewish midrash and pagan myths that then got combined, right? So this idea is usually, you know, denied. Well, obviously it's denied by Christians, right? But it's denied by atheistic scholarship in general, right? Who claim that there's a direct genealogy of Christianity from Judaism, right? And henceforth, there's no influence from the pagan. So that is what a lot of them come to conclude. Even though that seems, it seems.
Christianity was never just one thing. It was in the process of development that eventually settled into certain historical forms that even today are diverse. They're not even identical. And I would be cautious about ruling out any type of influence in that age.
Yeah.
Because everything was being influenced by everything else.
Right. But to prove the genealogical view that, Christian ideas were significantly borrowed from this or that, because it does seem like, for example, like Paul's letters, right? Like he extensively quotes the Old Testament, right? You can sort of sometimes see how he threw some sort of, Greek sort of philosophical ideas in there, but he largely seems to condemn them, right? He calls them like ideas that come from like elemental spirits, and and then he forms his own cosmology, right? Even though he uses Greek words, right? It seems like he's extensively borrowing from a Jewish cosmology, right? So it's hard to.
I think he borrowed from both because they were both available back then. Like I think because that's like kind of post-Hellenism, and there were so many currents to draw from back then. Everybody was taking a little bit from everywhere.
Right. I mean, I did significant research on Paul and how much he was influenced by Greek civilization, and I found pretty much very little. Right. So
I mean, he wrote in Greek, didn't he?
Right. He wrote in Greek. He was schooled in Tarsus, which is kind of like Athens. Right. It had like similar setup to Athens, to where like they had like really advanced schools, right, where they'd teach you like rhetoric and like philosophy and stuff. But so it could be that Paul was really, really raised, and then there's no significant historical proof that he was actually taught under Gamaliel, right? Well, Jewish historians seem to deny this, right? They say there's no significant proof that Paul was studied under the Jewish law, because this is claimed, because he claims that he studied under the Jewish law. Right. So, but then he provides several of his proofs from the Old Testament. Right. So I mean, I would definitely jump on this issue, but I've not found more on it.
Yeah, I always thought like early Christian, like basically the form Christianity took eventually was Pauline Christianity. And it was his own synthesis that he came up with using his own artistic and literary creativity. But he drew from all the sources that were around, and just like any artist does in any age.
Machine, what was the thing that he said that you didn't want to respond to? I didn't quite catch what he was saying.
What do you mean?
What Derek was saying, you said you'll hold your tongue on what he was saying there. I think you guys might have talked about
no, he was saying that basically Islam could take over and then apply the same ideology, and they could take a retroactive approach, just as Christians have done, and said, well, all of these historical ideas were leading up to us.
Right.
So that was the argument that he was making, and I was curious to know you and Jeff's response to that.
Yeah, well, but what's ironic is like, isn't his own worldview kind of doing that too? Where it's like they get like secularism out of Christianity, then turn around and say, well, this was a necessary step to get here, but now that we're here, fuck all that. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, isn't that kind of what he's done? Isn't that kind of? I should have turned that on him too, maybe. But do you think that would have been a good argument, or?
Is he a secularist?
I mean, basically,
pretty much.
Oh, I really thought he was Christian from all his posts that I see.
Well, he tries to like
secularism is post-Christian. Even if it's secular, it's a post-Christian secularism.
Yeah, I think it is something like that. So he's kind of, but that's the thing is like he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. That's kind of why I took this approach, because like I do think he scares the fuck out of like Jay Dyer. Like I think Jay Dyer's scared as fuck of him, to be honest with you. Like
I haven't thought about him in years. I forgot all about him.
Well, Wilson said this in basically to Mark Reed, he said this, right? He basically said it to Not So Erudite, right? He's claimed that basically Christianity is responsible for Western progress, right? So essentially, all of the atheistic ideas, even liberalism, has to pay its respect to Christian ideology, right? So on and so forth, right?
I mean, individuals are responsible for progress, and they can be found in all different denominations and worldviews. Like that's too abstract to say an ideology is responsible for progress. And not every person that's contributed to progress were Christian, but they like if they're from the West is highly Christian inflected. I don't know what his point. I think he's trying to claim more he's like trying to clout ride off of our Western geniuses and try to claim more for Christianity than I think. He'd have to give specifics. That's too broad of a statement. He'd have to show how. How is Christianity as a belief system responsible for our progress and solely responsible for our progress?
It definitely tries to dismiss that there was like a lot of occultist beliefs that were involved in what he calls Christianity, right? So that's kind of where I go to, and I've noticed like if you start going down that road, like people will flip the fucking table over on you, and they just won't engage, and they'll just call you like a conspiracy theorist, or they'll find some reason not to engage with that line of thought.
Then they're not there to discuss ideas, because it's not.
Anybody
can engage with an idea or a claim or a belief.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like I think that you can make like no true Christian, argument and say like who's the real Christian, but it's like it does get pedantic. But at a certain level, it's also like what level of occultism is acceptable within Christianity, right? And so like if nobody wants to have that discussion, then I just don't think we're having I don't think there's an honest discussion being had about what is a real Christian, So like you can't, I think it's like if you want to have your cake and eat it too, like just be honest about that and say, well, I don't like the occultism, but I'm not giving back the technology and I'm not giving back all these things that I've gotten out of it. It's like, okay, like just be honest about that. I think that's just a more honest, approach to the situation, right? In my opinion. So like was Newton a Christian? I mean, you know what I mean? Like was Isaac Newton a Christian? You know what I mean? Like I guess so, but like but he was also an alchemist and stuff, right? So like where do you draw the line,
Yeah, especially that like that pre-scientific era where so much of occultism was as advanced as that kind of stood in for science at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why like I like one of my favorite things to say is like a talking point, which sounds totally absurd, but like I really, really like saying it. But like I like to say that, and I think I say it in this thing or later to him. Oh my god, I should just play the video. But like I basically said to them, I was like, almost everybody's like a Descartesian, solipsist, and they're like, oh, I'm not a solipsist, and I'm like, yeah, I think you are, because I think so much of what people rely on, like, basically leaves them as like a solipsistic, like, if I can't prove it to myself with evidence and reason, then it doesn't exist. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, but I think that leads to like absurdity, because like Jeff, you believe that there's like a black hole out there in space, and you believe that there's stars out in space, right? But you can't ever verify that for yourself, right?
Not
Like,
me personally, but
Oh, you
I have
don't
no
believe
reason to not trust the people that have looked into this.
No, but I'm saying you do believe in that, right? Like, you do think that there's a black hole and stars and stuff, right?
I take it for granted that there is.
Right. But
Only,
if I
only
but
because the scientists have told me there is.
right, and I'm saying, like, they take those
There's
things for
proof.
granted. They take those things for granted, even though they haven't personally like verified it with the math and the instruments and understand how the instruments are built. And you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying, like, some things you take for granted and some things you don't, right? That's all I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
like yeah, certain axioms. You have to have axioms as starting points. And I'm an epistemological solipsist anyway, so I
Right. Well, see,
not
that,
not a Descartesian, but
I'm totally fine with that. Like, I think it's fine, like, if you can just admit that there's some level of it. I just think when you're in denial of it, and then you just make a bunch of arguments trying to make other people look stupid, like, I don't think
I get part of it is I don't know much about these people, and I haven't seen the first part of the conversation. So part of it is I'm just
No,
not
you didn't.
oriented
You,
to what the
you didn't
discussion
miss,
even is.
you didn't miss anything really. So that this is pretty much the beginning of the argument. So I'll go
Oh,
ahead and
okay.
play a little bit more, because it gets pretty good pretty quick. But yeah, this
All
guy's wearing like lipstick, I think, the Bible guy. Interesting.
With good ethics in the East, for example. And I'm not saying all their ethics are good. In history, everybody owned slaves, for example. But the morality argument or the ethic argument doesn't really move the needle on me when I can find those ethics predating Jesus in the philosophers of the time. And it's just not a very convincing argument to me, if I'm being just honest with you.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I can even agree largely kind of like with your perspective in a sense. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and
Of course.
Can you pause it? I had an AI conversation about this the other day where I asked it what specifically are like what did Christianity itself contribute to our understanding of ethic, like our modern ethics? And it gave me a whole list of things that are derived specifically from Christianity itself that are not found in any systems before Christianity did innovate. So if that's what he's talking about, it's not all derivative. Just like Socrates was an originary figure. He brought things into culture that did not exist before him, or he formulated them in such a way as to originate from him. Christ did the same thing for a lot of values that we take for granted here in the West as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's
Beliefs,
kind of,
values, ways of looking at the world, like emphasis that we place on certain things that we didn't place before because of Christ as a model and a figure and a proponent of that.
yeah, and
He
that's
kind of reoriented our ethical sense in a way.
Yeah, that's definitely like that's kind of where I try to pin them down, but I want to see what you guys think of like how I did it, because I know I did a really shitty job, but like I still think it's an interesting conversation regardless. Though
a lot of it comes down to like what's your standard of evidence and what's your definition of truth. And I think that like fundamentally, of course, we're not really going to fully agree with that. But I would say that in a sense, and sorry, I'm just going to have an interruption in just a second here, but I'll say it like this, like, sorry, I'm distracted because somebody came up to talk to me. So just give me one moment. I'm sorry, hold on.
And Dalton, feel free to, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, let him add, and I'll respond, because I do have a response to you, but it's going to be a little long-winded, and I want to make sure I address both you guys.
So I agree with Derek that, here, the thing is, people are good or bad, and they're going to use their religion to either justify their goodness or to excuse their badness. They're going to, the religion doesn't really, I don't think Christianity really makes people good or bad. People are good or bad regardless, and they're going to use a religion to justify or excuse their actions regardless. And to Derek's point, yeah, I mean, the fact that we have ethics and morals in a moral society before and outside of Judeo-Christianity. So I think in general, I think people are good in spite of what Christianity will tell them
if I may add just to that, while Neuro's paused for a second here, I was on my way up here, and I've caught some slack. I'm glad Neuro brought up some of the ortho bros that I've engaged in the past, because one of the things I haven't done is studied a lot of the philosophy or philosophers. And so I had a 9-hour trip getting up here to my mother-in-law, who's, we don't know how much time she has left. She's on stage 4 cancer right now. I'm in her backyard, and my wife's inside spending time with her. And I was told by a lot of friends of mine who do know Plato, who do know Socrates quite well, and they said, start with, Credo or Crito, apology, start diving into Meno, start diving into Euthyphro. And I started reading all of these, and I spent 9 hours that day listening to all these audiobooks, and I started realizing I noticed some trends. This is 300-400 years before Jesus. In some of the cases, it literally says there is not a single situation where you are allowed to harm another human being. Coming out of Plato, Socrates, in these discussions, that they had such an ethic that harming any human at any time is absolutely uncalled for, and they do not allow it. And so I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. Turn the other cheek kind of philosophy. We find this kind of sacrifice for oneself and pray for your enemy kind of thing. You see this idea already existing hundreds of years in the philosophers' minds. Their reasoning may be a bit different from the time you get to Jesus, but the seeds are already planted there. I can imagine Buddha having a similar thing, harming others, harming any life. He goes beyond just humans. And all of these things, it just doesn't move the needle on the truth of it for me, because if it did, I would equally lay out, the other religious views and be like, oh, yeah, this is convincing to me, but the ethics one doesn't move the needle on the ontological belief of a religion. I think you can have a lot of religions teach good ethics. I mean, I know Mormons who are more ethical than evangelicals, and they would say they're false religious people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be a tendency to have like a purity spiraling among Christianity. And again, I think that's, maybe depends on your perspective, because, okay, you could, I mean, I like to argue things like, for instance, that Nietzsche was a Christian who struggled, and he wrote all these polemics against Christianity because he saw the value in Christianity, but also hated how it had been bastardized, by, people like Hegel, maybe, for example, right? So, like I would say that, Hegel is like the father of like modern, heresy of Christianity, for example, right? So like, should we delineate like
their response is just like just 6 seconds of silence after you said that?
I'd say Nietzsche. I think he saw the value of myth in general and what happens when you try to move away from myth, and Christianity just happened to be the dominant myth. So I don't know if he saw value in Christianity itself other than as myth and the human need to have some sort of myth. Because he did the same thing with Dionysus and Apollo when he talked about the Greeks and the birth of tragedy.
Yeah, one could say that in some sense, this whole idea of sort of overcoming one's own like cultural like degeneration, and obviously for a lot of reasons, Nietzsche has ended up on the right wing of a lot of issues, right? Because of that, right? So the Christian right has gravitated towards Nietzsche in this late stage, right? Granted that there is some stuff. Obviously, Nietzsche is impossible without the milieu that's sort of laid forward by the Protestant Reformation, right? He could not have composed the works and the writings and the stuff. So he could be seen as a reaction to German Protestantism, right? In a lot of aspects, right? Because he is a German, and that was the cultural, movement of the time, right? So, and
he explicitly says that in some of his writings when he talks about
he kind of does, yeah, and so does Spinoza. Spinoza kind of says like he's trying to prove like the God of Maimonides, right? He sees himself as basically Jewish, right? Even though the Jews didn't consider him, much of a Jew, and so on and so forth.
Well, I was definitely baiting with the Hegel and Nietzsche, but they didn't take the bait, so I had to switch tactics after this. But they didn't really bite, unfortunately. But what do you think about that argument, though? Like, well, I back him up on Plato, though. Like I do kind of back him up on that. So, but what do you think about me like baiting with like Nietzsche and Hegel? Because like I was really expecting them to say something, but they didn't really say anything. I think, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. Bible Boy's not been talking much at all.
Yeah, Hegel definitely expresses ideas about Christianity and how it led to the enlargement of freedom on a sort of universal scale, right? So we sort of read that in Reason and History. He sort of says that the Protestant Reformation was a total expansion of freedom and the human understanding of freedom and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, kind of what I'm trying to lead them to is like their hatred of Christianity isn't even really Christian. That's kind of what I'm trying to say to them, because they're like, because I basically what I'm trying to get them to admit to me is basically like, I'm trying to get them to admit that what they hate about Christianity isn't even necessarily Christian, but they're still relying on like Hegelian Christianity to come to their conclusions and stuff like that. You know, if that makes any sense. Like, and I also mentioned Kant in a second, but that's kind of what I'm trying, like in my mind, that's what I was trying to do. And maybe that's not like the best move, but I was really distracted and I was like, you know, maybe this will work. Cause like I really was trying to engage with them and see like where they're getting their ideas from. Right. But
yeah, because like Hegel pretty much thought like Christianity is included within the world spirit that's like gonna lead to like things like Protestant Reformation and also the French Revolution. So he's all like all over the place and that so definitely followers of Hegel would be, you know, proponents of that.
Pre-Hegelian Christianity versus post-Hegelian Christianity, you know, such as Marx. Because I mean, I would say that communism is basically a you know, heresy of Christianity in a lot of ways, right? And I mean, if you want to get technical about it, I mean, Marx kind of said that in a sense, right? So, you know, and I think that it is kind of a strength that if you want to like look at Christianity as a syncretic version of previous philosophies and stuff like that, you know, then I think that is, you can make a strong argument for that. But to me, that kind of would like kind of strengthen Christianity. Like I particularly agree with what you're saying about the Cynics. I think that people often overlooked that, like, you know, Jesus very much sounded like an Eastern and Western version of Cynic philosophy in a lot of ways. You know, and I think that's a very poignant thing that you point out, to be honest with you.
I mean, it sounds like we could just take the ethics and leave all the, because like, again, I don't think there's really anything all that like unique to Christianity as far as its ethics are concerned. So I can take the ethics and I don't need any of the religious aspects. Like the question really at the end of the day is does Yahweh exist?
Yeah, there's the like
Bible
sort of have your
accurate?
cake thing that you're talking about. That's the have your cake and eat it too that you're talking about. It's like he's like, I could just take the ethics and, you know, it's like, but even though
Did Jesus resurrect the dead? Was he the
yeah, no, just gonna say even though it's kind of like one that led to the other, you could pretty much argue.
well, I think I switched tactics right after this, so we'll see what you guys think. Jeff, you got something?
No, not about what he just said.
Yeah, I was just really distracted because like I did not see I did not really look at these guys' faces while I was talking the whole time. But this Bible guy is definitely wearing like lipstick or
Especially for
something.
Bible guy.
He's got like DSL for sure.
Messiah? Because at the end of the day, these ethics are not unique to Christianity.
I'll tell you the problem with your argument, and from my perspective as a Christian. Again, this isn't to like demean you guys or belittle you, but like you kind of just discard the concept of God from a Christian point of view. You know, which, you know, from your own argument, I think you could argue that it's a syncretic God or something like that, or a perennialist God or something. You know, one of those two. I don't know which one would fit best. But you're kind of trading that God for the God of reason, right? That's kind of why I bring up, like, you know, people like Kant or Hegel. Like you're kind of just trading. Reason? You know,
I don't have any God. I don't have
any.
Yeah,
you're kind of like worshiping reason. You're kind of saying like, well, I need to be able to reason things out in a rationalist, Descartian sense.
I use reason. See, this is the thing. I don't worship.
Yeah, reason is a tool, but reason is a tool. It doesn't like epistemologically, ontologically, like exist outside of time and space, right?
No, but I don't think anything does.
Yeah, you think. See, again, you're kind of like in a solipsistic Descartian framework of mind, which is kind of what we've all been put into by modern thinking.
I can only believe things I'm convinced of, and I'm not convinced that Christianity is true. And when I say true, I mean comports to reality.
Yeah, but see,
I am getting a strong read off of this Bible guy. My DAR is pinging. You might see him at the gay rodeo.
He does have a purple shirt on.
Don't take it as gospel, but I'm just saying. I'm getting.
Is he turned on by my argument or what?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah, he looks like he's a little light in his loafers and so on. But yeah.
Thing at the end of the day, you know. And again, I'm not saying this to like belittle your position, but I think that you're making a distinction between, you're not really
I just caught what I did. Hold on, let me back up 10 seconds. It's actually really funny to me. All right, hold on. Let me back up like 5 seconds.
Yeah, but see, this the thing is that term doesn't actually really mean anything at the end of the day. You know, and again, I'm not saying this to like belittle your position, but I think that
Which term?
you're making a distinction between, you're not really making a distinction between belief and faith, right? Like there's a difference. Like faith doesn't require belief necessarily. I don't think, you know.
Faith is a type of belief.
Like you can live it. I don't think so.
It's belief without.
I think it's super. That's a very particular and peculiar definition. I kind of reject that, right?
So I just basically trying to point out that they seem to be conflating belief and faith as if they're the exact same thing, and I was trying to that's kind of what I was trying to catch them on.
Well, what do you think they are? A lot of people do use them interchangeably. Because faith, especially Christian faith, is belief in something. I mean, faith is belief in something. But you can have, like everyone has beliefs. That's not necessarily I would call faith.
Well, but faith is definitely. But I would say that faith is something that's like
it's believing that something is so.
Well, it's something that you don't have to find like a reason to believe it. If that makes any sense.
Like I would put faith more in the category of like conviction, and then maybe like belief in the category of like opinion. Or you could have an opinion about something that doesn't necessarily mean you believe something, all right? But if you like have faith in something, then that means like
it also seems like we're in semantics at that point, but because I have political beliefs, like things that I believe are better for society than other things, but I wouldn't necessarily call that a faith.
Well, but like, do you have any political convictions, like meaning like you'd be willing to like slaughter people for something, right?
Well, not slaughtering people is one of those convictions, but I have very strongly held core beliefs like free speech.
Right. But you could maybe say like your political beliefs are based in your faith in humanity. All right, so on and so forth.
It's based in my faith, or what I call belief in the dignity of the individual, the primacy of the sovereignty of the individual as the highest sacred value. So I definitely mythologize the individual, and
so
maybe
I think that would be the distinction. I think not all beliefs are based on sacred values, right? Or could
maybe so, but maybe they ensue from beliefs ensue from faith, or they're downstream from what our deeply held values are. But then I have scientific beliefs like black holes. Like I haven't personally verified if there's a black hole, but I believe that they're out there because that's what the smart people say makes sense.
But that wouldn't necessarily be like a sacred.
No.
See, that's what I mean.
Say. Other than like human reason itself could be seen as a sacred value.
Oh yeah, because it's part of like the mythical structure of like, because like there are certain myths of our civilization. Like reason is like basically one of them, like science and reason and stuff like that we believe in, like all of those things that we believe that we can achieve, progress through those things, that would be like sort of a myth, right, of our current age.
Or faith.
Oh yeah.
Like faith in human reason, I would say, is a form of faith.
Right. I think so. So Neuro's right with that for sure.
Yeah, I would just go to Hebrews 11 in terms of how do I understand faith, and the examples that are listed from those in the scripture, and they use the Hebrew Bible, happen to be in circumstances where all the evidence is contrary to the promise. So God promises something, and Abraham's way too old, or Sarah's way too old, or the situation in front of their eyes do not seem to make sense with what he's promising them, and yet they're still having hope. So contrary to the evidence, they have hope. And the example in that the faith hall of fame, if you will, with all the list in Hebrews 11 describes people having hope in cases where all the evidence seems to suggest that's not going to happen, but they still believe, or they still have hope in God doing those things he promises. So that's why a lot of skeptics you'll hear say faith is believing in things without evidence, because when you look at and maybe that doesn't sound right, because sometimes we're going back and forth and trying to engage in debate and whatnot. But when you just look at the face value of that hall of fame, a lot of those people have no reason in front of their eyes we walk by faith, not by sight. Contrary to what sight is, we believe. And so this is why we look at it and go, okay, God's promising stuff. The evidence doesn't seem to contort to it until he fulfills that promise. And the example is already in scripture. So we're reading a story that's telling you he fulfilled this promise when most of us question the historicity of those stories to begin with as if they ever happened to begin with. So it's like, I guess we're getting off track of like, why should we become a Christian? I think we all agree there are ethics that we could find that are good or bad in all systems. I imagine you may not agree with that as far as Christianity because you are Christian, but I don't think the ethics moves us the needle toward why we should become Christians and believe there are other philosophies and religions that have ethical systems. So we're wondering what other than ethics would you argue?
Sure. Well, I would argue like this again. I think that, to my knowledge, I think that, if you want to look at it from a pragmatic point of view, which I think that's where you guys are coming from, which I think is another trap. But again, like I do respect it more than most world.
For me, it's not pragmatism. It's just simply like I don't necessarily care about if a religion works or it functions in society. I want to know whether or not the religion is factually true, if it comports to reality. Like I could.
Yeah, but you're putting a value on truth that ultimately you're still kind of arguing that. Yeah, but you're still kind of arguing that it has some sort of practical or intrinsic value. Exactly right. So it's still a subjective value that you're kind of like imprinting upon.
Yeah, so I can have ethics and morals without Christianity. At the end of the day, though, if I want to become a Christian, I need to be convinced that Christianity is true, and the way to do that is by providing.
You could really go either way. I don't want to make a final ruling.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. I understand what he's saying about needing to be convinced, because that's part of what holds me back too.
Yeah, but
I'm not going to believe in something that doesn't make sense, and people rising from the dead just does not make sense to me.
But you could still say like, because he's saying like, he's saying like, if you don't accept it as true because you can't know it to be true, right, then you shouldn't use it for ethics. But that doesn't necessarily follow, right?
It doesn't. It's two different categories, I think, that he's conflating.
Well, but he's also saying that like he has a subjective ethics that he wants to like apply to people, but that's kind of what I was trying to
we all do. I mean, everybody's ethics is personal,
right?
To them.
Well, yeah, ethics is somewhat. I mean, you could argue is like subjective, but I mean, again, it's kind of
but
like
just because that you don't believe Christianity is correspondently true does not mean that can't be a source or influence on your ethics, or where your ethics are derived from.
Right.
If that's what he's saying.
Well, and that's kind of how I started off the conversation, is saying like you're still comparing everything to Christianity, whether you believe in it or not, which is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was trying to say. Is like it's kind of interesting that you reject it, but you're still comparing everything to it, right? So, and
then I would then venture to say basically that the claims in either Christianity or total atheism are so finalistic that you can't prove anything either way, right? Like the total putting the total burden of proof on yourself is pretty ridiculous, right? But yeah.
Well, that's actually kind of where I take the argument. That's actually pretty much what I say. Well, let me continue for a second.
Not just its usefulness,
right? But so again, I'll just make a few brief points just to leave you with some thought experiments from my angle, because I think that's kind of what you guys are that's kind of one of you guys' strengths. So I'll put it like this. I would put it like this. I think that Christianity is one of the only faiths that allows people to kind of play golf between themselves and God. Like God being like the golf course or life, and yourself as the player of golf, right? Like you usually don't play golf necessarily against the other people unless you're in a tournament, right? But ultimately you're trying to beat your last best, or at least find some sort of satisfaction out of the game that you're playing.
Golfing with God. Did it work?
Yeah, I was just kind of like I knew that they were kind of thrown off anyway, so I was like, let me just throw them off a little more.
Right, and I think that's kind of the perspective that Christianity brings to the world. I don't know that another faith does that. For example,
I don't quite understand the analogy, but if you're making the claim that Christianity allows for one to have like a personal connection with the deity, I don't think that's unique to Christianity.
I mean, I certainly do think it is, but let me explain briefly.
I can get that in Judaism.
Well,
not a personal connection. It's almost even an American modification of Christianity, because not even European Christianity, the like a personal relationship with you and Jesus Christ that you share alone between the two of you is not even found in traditional European Christianity.
Like Arianism you're talking about?
No, I'm thinking more about American Protestantism and this idea of a personal relate, like that God and Jesus loves you personally, and you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
very personal, unique relationship with Him. That's not part of traditional Christianity. Having a personal relationship with the deity.
Right. Right. It would seem like
And I don't know,
that
like the Greeks didn't. You might have a God that favored you or helped you out, but you don't have a relationship.
right. That's more like
So
something
if he's
from
saying
sola
that's
fide.
found in other religions, I'm interested to hear what his examples of that are. Because I don't even think it's found in even a lot of Christianity itself.
Well, he said Judaism as the first example. So,
Like a
I'm not
personal
sure.
relationship with Yahweh.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
First of all, who
personally.
would want one? And second of all, I don't. Is there a biblical basis for that?
I don't see. That's what I'm not sure of. Like, I mean, it
I know he
depends on
looked out for Israel, the tribe and his people, but not any particular. Wasn't David his favored?
Yeah, like isn't like God like Ein Sof, like so you can't describe God, like there's so on and so
In the
forth. Like,
Kabbalah, he is.
right. So I would think there's Jewish interpretations, significant Jewish interpretations where God is basically indescribable, ineffable, so on and so forth. So
But
I think that
Yahweh
maybe
himself was a very definite personality, and he changed from book to book because they had different authors depicting him.
Well, and again, like the whole, like, I mean, as far as I could tell, the primary point of Christianity is like, Jesus became a man to like let us know God's personality, essentially, right? So I mean, like, maybe that's not the best analogy to use, but like, I think that's pretty unique as far as I'm aware. Like, I don't know of any other religion that's like, God came to like get to know us and show Himself and reveal His personality to us or something. Like, I don't
The
know.
personality of Christ is so different than any personalities of Yahweh that we encounter in the Old Testament. So that's why I don't think God the Father is Yahweh.
Well, I think the point is that how could you like they always use this example, like if there was a good God, why would a kid get sick and die of cancer or something, right? Like the only way that you could prove that is if you meet him in person and say like, and he kind of tells you like, look, some things you're going to be able to comprehend and some things you can't, but I'm still here for you at the end. It's like it again, it's a mystery. You're not trying to say like, oh, the ethics, you're going to understand like the morality of
Well, then
God.
why did he show up to be mysterious? That seems to defeat the purpose of revealing himself so that we could know him.
Well, it's kind of like what Paul said. Paul said, look, for some people, you're going to get milk, and other people, they're going to get the meat. Like, not everybody's going to get like an equal revelation of the truth, right?
well, there's a huge proponent of Paul that actually believed that that Jesus was not the son of God the Father. That's a different guy, right? But the actual father of Jesus is like an alien. That like sent him into the world to save us from Yahweh. So he said that the Old Testament is false, but he followed the New Testament. It would be Marcion, right?
I think to distinguish itself from Judaism, they had to change up the Father a bit to make it not Yahweh. 'Cause it's definitely not the same person you encounter in the God of the New Testament. To me, is definitely not the same God you encounter in the Old Testament. Their personalities are completely different.
It is kind of weird that they didn't use the name Yahweh.
Well,
Yeah,
Yahweh
who is it, Abba
Lord.
or God the Father?
I think Yahweh just means Lord, though. It's not like if
Right.
you ask like most people, if you ask the name of God, like Tetragrammaton is like basically the closest they'll get to saying God's name, right? Like they say Tetragrammaton is like.
I don't think God wants you to know who He is. He's certainly not making it easy.
Well, I think trying
Yeah, I
to
believe that.
personify all of existence is like You can't really do that, but that's like
shit. I wasn't paying attention to the time. I do have to run. I have something I have to go to.
I appreciate
later.
you coming by, Jeff. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, this is fun. I'll come by again. Keep reminding
Thank
me.
you. I'll come by your show too. Just send me DMs. Your stuff.
Yeah, every day, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to start streaming at the same time every day because YouTube's been fucking with the algorithm.
Yeah.
And, I need people to be able to find me at the same time and place.
Yeah.
So spread the word.
Yeah, blessings, Jeff.
We'll cross some streams.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. All right, take care. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, peace.
Thank you, Jeff.
Peace.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is the same God, but I think it's one of these things like, there's so much occultism wrapped up into people's beliefs that it's like really hard to get down to the nitty gritty of it for sure. Like maybe even my own, maybe I'm deluded by some of the occultism, but it's possible. But all right, let me just play the rest of this thing really quick. I'm almost done. I'm pretty like I know I'm winding down because like I remember very vividly. I was like, these guys are not gonna like. There's already made like 3 or 4 points, and they keep going back to this whole like beginning of the conversation. So
you kind of seem to get that from like scientism, right? Like you kind of think that like, well, by analyzing and measuring things, it gives you some sort of like connection to reality that's superior to somebody else. I mean, you're kind of doing a simulacrum of that, I think.
I'm able to understand the physical world to a better extent through science. I don't know what scientism is. Scientism's not a real word.
It is a real word. It's the religion of like some solipsistic religion that a lot of people are in that they just can't admit to themselves.
I'm not a solipsist.
I think most people in the modern age are definitely a solipsist, whether they're aware of it or not, for sure. But again, I'm just leaving you guys with some thoughts.
I think what you're doing is what a lot of Christian apologists do, is that you have to sort of drag atheists down into the muck of religion. Like you realize that there's something wrong with religion, so you have to point fingers at us and say, well, actually, you too, you're religious, but we're not. I don't have a religious bone in my body.
You definitely are.
I'm definitely not.
I don't think that, but by every definition of the word of religion, I think you guys do fit. And again, I'm not saying that to dig on you. I think it's
there's not a single deity that I
natural
worship.
to humans.
I think he's breaking.
Well, this is why people do. I don't like the way that the guys do the presupposition with you guys, but I do think that in general, like you do have to examine all the presuppositions, at least to yourself in private, in the closet, like we Christians do when we pray.
But I don't worship any deities.
About what your
I can't
belief is.
I can't belong to religion. I don't.
He thinks that just because you don't worship a deity, you don't follow religion. When there's Confucians and Buddhists and stuff, like what is he talking about?
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I was being a dick about it. Like I wasn't really trying to be a dick. I was just trying to like very quickly show them the point I'm trying to make, which is that you can't escape like that you're taking some presuppositions for granted to make your arguments, right? And I kind of said like, well, you got to go into your closet and like admit to yourself your own presuppositions at night, like what like a Christian does when they pray to God. So I was just trying to be funny. I was just trying to be funny about it, but I really was serious about it. Okay, buddy. Well.
Worship any deities. I don't have like a.
You do the religion. The deity that you worship is the deity of reason. You think that reason is like some sort of superior thing that has ontology.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Deity has meaning, and if you like extend the word deity to refer to not just like actual gods, but literally to anything, then it doesn't. Then it's
but that's what you're doing with our God. You're trying to like drag God into reason when God is supra reason.
No,
that's kind of my point, right? It is.
No, I'm just defining deity as a divine being.
Like, do you think that we could ever? Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a genuine question. Do you think that you could ever quantify or qualify the existence of the universe via any sort of reason or science or anything like that? Do you think that's ever possible? Do you think you could ever have the? Okay.
I don't know.
Say what?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know. So you think the universe is, as far as we could tell, basically infinite, and you think that there's some way we could possibly compute the?
Okay, there's a contradiction right there, because earlier he claimed that he can't follow Christianity until he knows, and now he's saying you can't know. So that's where you should have pinned him and say, well, how can you? Why are you waiting to know? Something you can't ultimately know. You just said, right? So pretty weird.
Yeah. Well, and again, like I know I didn't do a great job, but I was just trying to see like what level of like honesty are they coming at it with? And I think I genuinely threw them off. Like you can see the way Derek's looking. Like I think he's genuinely like not sure what to say. And he had a thoughtful response to a lot of this too, actually, by the way. So I think the Bible guy kind of like is like deer in the headlights. Like I think he knows that he got kind of caught, but you know, but if this had been like a 2v2, we definitely would have like caught them up for sure. You know, like if you had just jumped in the conversation like right here, for sure it would have been a very interesting conversation. What's up, man?
Yo, what up?
But this is sort of exactly what I just pointed out, is that he put himself into it, sort of impossible standard of proof, and then when he goes to fulfill it for Christianity, he says he can't. When he goes to fulfill it for atheism, he says he can't. In the case of Christianity, he says he can't believe it. Thusly, in the case of atheism, he says it's got to be true. As a result, so that's false. Like it's like he applied false standards.
We're just reviewing a little trolling, not really trolling, but like trolling their idea about religion and stuff like that. What's on your mind today?
Got nothing, man. Nothing. You know what I mean? I do what I do when I do it. I understand like why it is that everybody's always so concerned with the truth all the time. Like, yo, listen, like the truth is only true until like it's like Socrates said, bro. Like, you know, the beginnings of wisdom is understanding that you really don't know nothing. You know what I mean? You don't know anything in the end of the day. So how can you actually like really seek truth, right? Like, what is true when it comes down to it? Like, once you get new information and things change, like, you know, is it still true? You know what I mean? The thing that you believe, like, yo, stupid. Go fuck all that shit. Have an idea and like form like a basic cartography map of how the world works. Makes life so much fucking easier.
Well, that's kind of what I tried to drag them into pragmatism, and Derek kind of admits that like he is kind of a pragmatist. This other guy is like, no, I just worship truth, and I was like, that's basically that's like by any definition, you know, like putting truth above all else in the sense of like an atheistic way is definitely a religious belief that requires faith, in my opinion, right? Like you just have this like faith in like capital T truth that is basically like you're just giving like godhood status to like this idea of truth, and I think that that's
it's autism, bro. You know what I mean? It's autism in the end of the day.
I mean, the cowboy hat with the buckle on it didn't tell you that, but
yeah, listen, like, you know, it's just autistic white people bullshit, right? They continually do this shit like all the fucking time, where they're just like, oh, we gotta find the truth and the truth and the truth, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, none of y'all ever give a fuck about the truth. Shut up. Like, listen, you're just, you know what I mean, like obsessed with nonsense because you're fucking bored. Like, go fucking like dig a hole or something.
well, that's why I'm going to try to do some more of these you know, try to get some more of these little panels going where I can catch some of these. Like, I think you would have done very well in this little panel.
Probably.
Swear to God. All right, I'm going to finish this up. This is almost finished. So I just want to see. I can't remember what was said after this. It's almost done. Almost done.
All right.
I don't know. I can't see the future, but I don't know what scientists in the future will be capable of doing.
Sure, but if you had to put a hypothesis forward, would you say that which would you would you say that my hypothesis is closer to that or yours?
I don't do that kind of stuff.
What I don't even know what your hypothesis ultimately is. I mean, I know you're a Christian, but we're not trying to like straw man your position or make you things you say you aren't, even though you keep trying to put that label onto us. And we're
because
simply,
you guys are trying to say that like that there has to be some sort of like evidence, quote unquote, of there being a God. I mean, for me, it's like reality doesn't. You can't reason how reality exists. Though, is what I'm trying to say.
We're specifically asking Christianity because at the end of the day, who knows? I mean, let's just say in 5 years, I'm like, you know what, man? I think Plato and these guys were onto something. Maybe there is something out there. Shit, I could be wrong. Cool.
Yeah, I think Plato was definitely onto something.
Okay,
I think Plato was definitely onto something.
Mind you, let me elaborate a little bit here. Cool, right? So we come to an agreement. Let's just say we're both like, you know what? We just somehow, let's say empirically, there was a way of pointing toward that made people convinced, like me and Dalton. Now, why Christianity? Why not polytheism? Why not the various systems that predate it? Why not the pagan version of the philosophers that centuries prior to Christianity already had these ideas that Christianity inherits many of those ideas, recycles them in their own systems. But it's just like, why Jesus? And so I think we're culturally brought up, and this is one of the things I think Dalton would probably agree with, is that Christianity dominated the world mostly. I mean, through coercion and psychological, I'll say, manipulation, and I don't mean that necessarily derogatorily, even though it can be that way in certain circumstances. So I'm asking
I'd also say that maybe it's through the strength of its usefulness. Like maybe it's useful to see the world through a certain lens, right? And this lens has provided people with, the ability to do all these great things, right?
Right, like 9 out of 10 times, he's betting on the prowess of psychological manipulation and coercion and all these things to work out in his favor. So I don't know why he protests when Christians do it. I don't know.
Personally don't care about whether or not Christianity is useful. I care about whether or not it's true.
Well, let me put it this way, and I'll try to make it a little bit personal. Like I have family members that have died recently and are probably going to die soon, right? And I think that's kind of what Derek was talking about. And look, I see, as a Christian, I see our time here on earth as like it's a test, but it's a test of love to let God know us and us to know Him and prepare us for whatever comes next. Even if there's not, let's assume that you're right. There's just nothing after this. Consciousness disappears, which I don't believe. I think you could look at the the laws of thermodynamics and like energy and all this. Like something about our existence is going to continue, I would say, even from a scientific point of view, but we don't know what that looks like exactly, right? But I think that Christianity allows us the lens in which to take all that pressure off of, trying to be this like miniature, small d deity of reason, right? I think if I think people have become the slave to reason, in my opinion.
Again, don't stop throwing around that word deity. It has a meaning, and as soon as we start making it refer to just anything could be deity, then that word is meaningless.
Well, because you use it as an axiom. Because you're using it as an axiom that
a word which means anything means nothing. And again,
because you can't justify
I don't care about whether or not Christianity is useful. I care about whether or not it's true.
But here's the thing: is you can't prove reason is real through reason, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to tell you, right? You're trying to use it like it's a presupposition that must be, but say what?
It's just an axiom that that reason.
Right, but axioms have to be justified.
Reason is just what our brains do to make sense of the universe. The universe objectively exists.
Right. So
our brains.
So if I, as a Christian,
our brains notice patterns.
Right. So if I as a
reason.
Right, and if I as a human reason that God is real, not in the sense of a deist sense of the word, then it's. I mean, if you want to quote a philosopher, I can quote Plantinga or René Girard or all these other people. You can go read like their stuff if you want, right?
That's fine if you believe that God exists, Jack. I don't really care about that topic. I care about whether or not Yahweh exists specifically, and whether or not Christianity is true. Did Jesus rise from the dead? Was he the Messiah? I don't care about the moral arguments of whether or not you think Christianity is. At the end of the day, you and I just have different goals. You care about something which you think is useful to you. I just care about what is true, even if that thing is not useful to me.
Well, I don't really believe in like a hard pragmatism, but I don't think that anybody can just value truth, intrinsically. I mean, that's kind of like a Luciferian, like I'm trying to make myself God so I can evaluate the intrinsic value of things. Right?
You really, Jack, you really want us to believe in a God. We don't believe in a God, Jack. Not any kind of God whatsoever. And you keep throwing it around.
I know this is going to sound disrespectful, but God is your daddy, and you just hate your dad.
No, he's not my dad, Jack. Your word God doesn't. Ironically, doesn't mean jack shit.
Well, why you stealing my shit, bro? You're stealing my shit, Neuro Jack. I swear to God, nigga. Listen, stop stealing my shit.
I try.
Good, dog.
Next time I'll shut you off. I was so laughing my ass off in between me talking, but yeah.
No, but it's like ethics, when you say these ethics are uniquely Christian, which basically is provably true, right? Because let's face it, they did not grow out of a Greek and pagan sort of system, right? So when you then say, well, you know, just as you could apply the ethical systems of all these things that came before Christianity and say it agrees with them, well, you could do the same thing with God. And then he says, well, that makes the definition of God too general, but it shouldn't, because he's just arguing for general atheism. He's not arguing for, you know, he's not arguing against a specific type of theism, right? So I don't know why he's protesting here.
Well, I definitely
he
triggered
sucks.
him. I definitely triggered him. Like, there's something I definitely triggered in him. Like, and Derek gets it, so he's not mad. But this other dude is like, he's getting really pissed off. And I was really just trying to make an impression, honestly, because like honestly, I really just wanted to like tell Derek. I wanted to get Derek to go like debate Jay Dyer. That's really what that's the main reason I came on here, is like I just wanted to see him go debate Jay Dyer, because Jay Dyer would, I think Jay Dyer would run away from the argument, like from debating him, and that's kind of what I was trying to do here, is like just like instigate him to go debate Jay Dyer. Because I think that would be a really interesting debate, to be honest with you.
Meaning, if God means anything, then it means nothing.
Jack, you're
God
fine.
is a supernatural being that creates the universe, rules it. It is the source of morals. I don't think that thing is real. I don't have a deity.
I know. I just want to tell you guys, I do love you. This is a really fun experience. I don't want to like end on a bad note, because like I do like you guys. I think that you guys are doing good work. Yeah, as a Christian, I think that challenges to our faith are healthy, to be honest with you. So I really do encourage you guys to continue what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, and I wish I could argue this better. You know, I'm kind of distracted, unfortunately, but I really do enjoy talking to you guys. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought I said something at the end, but I guess I didn't. But it was just really, it was a really funny interaction, because I knew I was going to use that like "God is your daddy" line, but I just didn't know where, so I just threw it in at the end before I left. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was just interesting, like. Because what's interesting about this is like they said they were going to have an open panel, and they let like one other guy up, and then they just let like all their friends come up, and I think they didn't actually do an open panel anymore after I got off. So it was pretty interesting, like that they kind of shut it down. They kind of shut down the after this. I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting, but I don't know. I've been reading a lot of Tom's articles lately, so you could tell that it rubbed off, because yeah, a lot of his articles are pretty vicious towards cultural Christianity. I think that's fair to say. Would you agree, Tom?
I mean, like empirical, like Christianity, you know what I mean, would be kind of like the shift of where, like, you know what I mean, really be heading towards. Like, I've been arguing that I don't have any problem with like America being an empire, as long as like you stop fucking lying to me and telling me we're spreading democracy. You know, like as long as you're not putting pride flags all over like the fucking bases, I'm kind of okay with doing and bombing whoever the fuck we want. Like I feel like at some point we should use this $1 trillion military to benefit us and just like, you know, take control of, you know, oil exports and, you know, fucking energy supply lines. And I think that we should be bombing Europe and forcing them to like pay for our healthcare for a while, since we paid for theirs for 80 fucking years. These type of things is where I've been getting to in my articles. You know what I mean? Kind of my mentality.
Well, definitely your like Machiavellian, pragmatic view of things. I think it's a lot more honest than what these guys are doing, which is kind of why like I like the juxtaposition. You know what I'm saying? Like I think because you're kind of forcing these kind of guys, like not only these guys, but like they also the Christian right. You know, they're like saying they care about morality when they don't. You know, and I think you're also saying the same of like these kind of like, you know, cultural Christian, like I care about the truth and I care about history, but really most people don't really give a shit about any of that. Like it's like my biggest problem with the people who are anti-war today is that most of them, it's just all like a performative thing. Like they're just trying to say like, oh, it's so mean that we're doing this, but like at the end of the day, they don't actually. I truly think that most of the people that you see publicly saying that, they don't really care. You know, it's like it's really just another way to say like America's bad and Trump is bad, which I agree with. But it's like, I mean, my biggest thing is like if we're going to be an empire, the average person should see some sort of benefit to their life, if we're just going to be in a secular empire anyways, right? But like there's no benefit whatsoever, as far as I can tell. I mean, I guess from like the easiness of life in general, maybe. Like you said,
Well,
like
like
your
the way
article
I
saying sorry to interrupt, I just want to make sure I get this. Like your article recently saying like Americans haven't really had to sacrifice the way that other people have. Like that's kind of what I'm getting at, right?
yeah. So like here's where it is. So like right now at the moment, like you're paying, like $3.80 a gallon at the pump or $4, whatever it is, right? And after this, I mean, you're going to be paying like $2.25, $2.30 a gallon for fucking fuel, right? And the reason for this is because what Trump sees and what like the administration sees is that energy is what allows our like economy and our like fucking basic way of life to function, right? It's not this bullshit of like, oh, what we do is better than everybody else because like we're Christians and we're fucking Americans and our liberal doctrine is the best thing. Our freedoms, right? Like, which is retarded. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. No, right? It's our fucking energy infrastructure. It's our ability to control energy. It's the value of our currency because of the fact that it has like outside demand on it, right? Which, I mean, allows for like demand inside of the fucking country. And as you start pumping the immigrants the fuck out, which needs to happen in a fucking hurry, and we're doing, I mean, little by little, which fucking sucks because, the corporations are going to be funding corporations in Britain and, I mean, the city of London, these type of motherfuckers are going to be fucking like anti-fight. They're going to be fighting this tooth and fucking nail to stop it. Right. But like, as we do this, I mean, the benefits will be seen to like the average American, not like the upper middle class manager, like, fucking the awfuls, but like the normal American where it's like, yeah, listen, you can't afford this. You can't afford a place. You can't afford a home. I mean, you can't afford like the ability to like go on vacation, all this type of stuff, right? These things are available because of energy, right? And there's a problem with the boomers, what I mean, where like we have to maintain their standard. There's all these type of things that are going on that so many people don't really look at. And they're just looking at it from this perspective of the Epstein pedophile Jew nonsense bullshit, right? And like you gotta let go of that at some point and go, hey, listen, we need to conduct our fucking government and our fucking defense policy and our international policy in a way that's beneficial to the empire, corporate structures, I mean, American motherfucking investment structures, and I mean, like long term growth with I mean, basic shit. And that's hard to do. I mean, when you have so many people who are just so used to this, being fed that college liberal line of peace and pita and I mean, vegetarianism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I don't really think that they're going to get rid of all the immigrants. I'll give you why.
Oh yeah,
I
they're
want
not. They're
to.
not gonna get rid of all of them. No, there's no
Yeah.
fucking way they can't. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's impossible. Like, listen, here's the level that we're on right now, right? And this is a crazy stat. Gen Z originally was 59 million people, right? Or I'm sorry, 58 million people. And right now, Gen Z as a population cohort are 79 million strong. You do
Really?
the math. Yeah. That's 21 million extra fucking Gen Z fucking cohort. Right?
Is that from immigration or?
Yeah, that's from immigration.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that that's why there's so much woke stuff is really just to like pander to these people and like get them to like feel American and be like, yeah, fuck white people and fuck all those people. You're
Yeah,
American now. Tell them you're
yeah,
American. Tell them,
yeah.
it's kind of
Uh-huh.
weird, you know.
Mm. Well, it's not. Yeah, listen, it's not even like that. It's more along the lines of if you can get people to accept transsexuals, right, and like furries and whoever else, right, they'll accept whatever fucking person's working beside them, regardless of their culture, their heritage, whatever it is.
So you think it's like a litmus test to send? Well, that's funny. I've actually had people use that word with me a lot recently. Where they're like, "Let me give you the litmus test." Like I've never heard anybody unironically use that, but people really are doing that. They like test to see like, let's see how far woke and left you are. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I was like, and I said some wrong stuff, and they got like really offended and kicked me out of the conversation. So I was like, okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty interesting, but that's pretty weird. So
Yeah. I mean, it's not a litmus test, right? It's more along the lines of if you can get the general public to accept, right? And I mean, just like the most wild ass shit, then like stuff that's like not quite as wild is easily accepted. You know what I mean? Like if you want somebody to be okay with driving a U-Haul truck, you know what I'm saying? Get them to be okay with driving, you know what I mean, like a motherfucking giant ass dump truck that like does mining work. Like you go way farther than you need to go. Like this is all corporate bullshit at the end of the day. Like none of this is like actual, you know what I mean, like beliefs.
yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I mean, it is very interesting. I mean, like the whole Iranian war thing to me is like it's 100% like a corporate board of people internationally that sat down and said like, look, we need to get some shit done. Now's the time to get this out of the way. And I definitely think Israel had a big part in it, but it does seem more like a business. Like to me, it's more of a business decision than it is like a necessarily geopolitical thing in and of itself, in my opinion. Now, I can't really prove that, but I definitely feel it was more of like a financial decision,
Well, if you wanna
more
close
than
off
anything else.
like Iran produced all the drones and missiles for fucking Russia, right? And then it also like was the number one fucking energy exporter for motherfucking China, right? And
Yeah,
North Korea. You know
that's
what I
kind
mean?
of what I'm alluding to for sure. Because I think I think Machine has a theory about this too, and I want him to remind me. But like in the back of my mind, like I think, in the back of my mind, I've been thinking like it's definitely a sideways come at China in the long run. Like I think it's basically like telling China like if you don't act right, you're next. That's what I personally think. But
There we go. Yeah, that's what I was saying, right? That's what I've been saying, right? It's that like this has almost nothing to do with Iran and everything to do with China and Russia.
Machine was telling me something. He thinks it's a proxy for something else too, and I can't remember. I don't want to misquote him, but he was telling me something different. I think he was saying if he wants to repeat it.
Yeah, like obviously they're trying to do a bunch of shit with the Middle Eastern countries.
Well, I think Pakistan's a big part of it too, because like I've noticed a bunch of news coming out of Pakistan that is like I think it set off some weird shit in Pakistan. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I saw a bunch of weird ass news involving Pakistan too, and I thought it was pretty
Well,
interesting
remember
because they
like
try to like
the
bury that
Taliban?
news.
Remember the Taliban in Afghanistan, right? The Taliban were the Mujahideen's kids, right? You know what I mean? Like the guys in the 80s who like we fucking funded to fight the Russians. Well, their kids were the Taliban, which means student, right? In Pashtun. And these kids went to Pakistan and to Iran, and they ended up studying in schools and universities there, and came back, and they became like the government of Afghanistan afterwards, right? Like this is why, like when you think of ISIS, you're thinking wrong, right? You think of ISIS as like these like fucking poor, you know what I mean, like dirt floor motherfuckers, you know what I mean, who never did. It's not like the average person in ISIS has like a fucking bachelor's degree or better, right? Like these are not dumb motherfuckers. Like these are highly educated people. And we don't really understand exactly like as like, the normal person doesn't understand exactly what's going on there, right? Until like you go and you do some study and you start looking into things. And so like when you start fucking with a place like Iran, right, that affects like Afghanistan and motherfucking Pakistan, right? Because there's ties all through that fucking, Central Asian area.
Well, ISIS is a good example because ISIS, they attacked Shia mosques inside of Saudi Arabia and they wouldn't attack Israel.
Yeah.
So they were allowed to do insane shit, like by the world powers and stuff, and they obviously got weapons from Saudi Arabia that gave them directly from the U.S. Like they're like made in the U.S. weapons.
Uh-huh. Like literally, their video quality was like as high end as a lot of like Hollywood like projects, right? Like ISIS,
So
ISIS is like the head of ISIS right now is the president of motherfucking
Yeah.
Syria.
Yeah, but
really
in
interesting.
yeah, but in Afghanistan, the Mujahideen that were there fighting the Russians for a long time, they replaced them with the Taliban. So they replaced the Northern Alliance with the Taliban. That's actually a real thing. Then they armed the Taliban first against the Northern Alliance, then against the Russians. So they did definitely create the Taliban.
Who?
Yeah,
Wait, who
I mean,
did? Who?
all right. So
ISIS did,
like, all
or
right,
Like
okay,
Brzezinski, basically, like Brzezinski had the plan. Like Brzezinski, like had the plan to arm the Taliban.
yeah, all right. So like the all right, Afghanistan is split up into like different sections, right? So you have the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Pashtuns, which are the three biggest, right? And then you also have like doggies and like fucking a whole bunch of other fucking people, like whatever, right? Whole bunch of different motherfuckers. So like the Tajiks are these what you would think of like the like fucking opium farmers, the poppy farmers, right? In motherfucking, I think it's Western Afghanistan, if I'm correct. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on that, right? But like they, I mean, they do like opium farming, and the Taliban tend to be Pashtun and Uzbek, right? And the Taliban or the Mujahideen were heavily influenced by the Tajiks, right? But like their kids ended up becoming like Pashtun, like fucking Taliban people, right? And then they ended up like fucking going after the original Mujahideen, and then they moved away. Like they got rid of the Northern Alliance, and then I mean they teamed up with the Tajiks to, or they end up the Tajiks ended up getting fucking giving the U.S. help during the Afghanistan occupation to like push the motherfucking Taliban out. And then once the Taliban came back in, they took out the fucking Tajiks and they killed the opium trade. Right? That the whole fucking country is wild. It shouldn't even be a country, if we're being honest with you. Right? It's basically lawless mountain. Crazy fact about Afghanistan, it is the size of Texas and it has as much fucking roads as fucking Rhode Island.
yeah, that's I've never heard any of this before, so this is a little. I have to digest some of this. I mean, like
Yeah,
I knew the general of it, but I didn't know the details of it. So this is. I saw that movie that I talked to Machine about. I can't remember the name of it, but it has like Leonardo DiCaprio was like a CIA agent, and he goes over there and he's kind of like making deals with these people, and like he's screwing over all these people and like setting them up, and then he gets screwed over and set up by like I think it was like Saudi Arabian intelligence or something like that, and they use him as bait, and they almost fucking kill him and stuff. But it's like it's very much about that, where it's like basically like you have the Western powers making secret deals with like Saudi Arabia, and then they both like have different sects, like pretend to fight each other, but in reality they're kind of like uh honeypots to catch the serious guys, and then they have to kill some of
Yep.
their own on both sides and shit. So it's pretty weird. It's a pretty weird
mm,
fucking situation.
like half the warlords that got taken out over there were literally like just like they all right. So we were offering bounties for like people to bring in, I mean, like the heads of the Taliban who were attacking troops, and they just started bringing in like motherfuckers they didn't like, right, or neighbors they had disputes with, just like fucking setting them up and saying "fuck you" here, right? They just deliver them to the Americans. The Americans like waterboard them and shit. They had absolutely nothing to do with anything at all.
Yeah, it makes me interesting. It's interesting too because like I noticed that they did this whole documentary. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was like all these heroin addicts in like Kabul or something, and like they're all like living out in the fucking like trash heaps and stuff. And then it shows like the Taliban going and pulling them all up and trying to rehabilitate them, and but it makes you wonder like how many people's like families got destroyed and they're just like out there with nowhere to go, and I don't know, like it seemed like a very like you said, like maybe there's a lot of these broken families that are just kind of wandering around, because if what Machine is saying is true, is like the Taliban is basically like it's like a crypto Western proxy army or something, like, which I never heard that. Like I thought the Taliban was technically like against the West, but it seems that the argument would be something like they're
No.
kind of against the West, but they're not really in the at the end of the day.
Yeah, like basically like the Taliban is they first worked with the West to obtain power, and then obviously they combined with Al Qaeda. That is basically like it's got like a lot of Western intelligence basically linked to that whole operation from the Muslim Brotherhood, because there's a bunch of people in the Muslim Brotherhood that were basically like CIA agents, and there's some of the people who went to like Pakistan and stuff and set up like Saudi Arabian schools and all this shit so they can indoctrinate people and so on and so forth. So obviously the Saudis, there's obviously a bunch of Arab countries in the Gulf Cooperation Council. They're working with all of those, Israel, America, to try to
Who do you think's the odd person
cultivate.
out? Who do you think's the odd person out in the Middle East? Is it like Qatar or UAE, or who do you think's like the outlier among those nations right now? Like who do you think who do you think the West is trying to spook into submission right now with the whole Iran thing, like in the Middle East?
I mean, probably all of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Too bad.
But I mean, do you think there's any that are more like independent than another, like UAE or Dubai? I mean, not Dubai, but you get what I'm saying. Like Saudi
Yeah, the
Arabia, I
UAE, like
know.
the UAE and
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia are 100% reliant on the United States. The
Yeah.
reason they have any wealth at all is because, like, all right, you know how like Saudi Arabia came to be by chance, Nerdjack?
Yeah, it's like Sykes-Picot and all this shit.
Lawrence of Arabia is about all I know.
All right, so basically, fucking Saudi Arabia came to be because when Britain came through and like fucking decided to make it into a fucking state, the House of Saud had just conquered that place, right? They were like Bedouin raiders, right? And like they just propped them up forever. And that's how we got Saudi Arabia. And then they were there when they like fucking found oil and guar and like 19, I want to say like 35, 36, something like that. And then like they just became unbelievably wealthy. And then in the 1970s, the US made a fucking deal with them and said, hey, if you trade your dollars in or trade your oil in only dollars, we will use our military to motherfucking defend your motherfucking lands and keep you as the global or the regional hegemon in that general area. And so they're 100% reliant. Like they have a ton of American arms, right, and like planes and all that type of shit. Like they can't run them, right? They can't maintain them. They can't. They don't have any parts for them, right? You know what I mean? Like their fucking pilots are trash, right? Like they're 100% reliant upon the United States. So like, and the UAE again is an extension of Saudi Arabia, right? It's all just oil money. This is Kuwait, all this shit. Remember, like, fucking with Baghdad, Iraq tried to go into Kuwait. That was Gulf War I. You know what I mean? And we went through and backed them up. Like, all these motherfuckers are all reliant upon us.
Well, I think China's relying on us too, honestly. That's what's kind of funny
Yeah.
is like, yeah. I think China can't really like I think everybody's like scared of China. I think China will be like destroyed in like a month if we just like take away business from them essentially, like because they have a lot of mouths to feed, and my personal opinion is I don't think they have the ability to feed themselves in China. Which I know that sounds insane, but like I truly do believe that. Like I think there's something. I think we got them on the hook somehow. I don't know exactly whether it be
Well,
through energy or food or something like that. So
All right. So, like, they're they require a lot of imported like additives for like farming, you know what I mean, such as like, you know, fucking tractors, combines, fertilizer, right? This type of shit. But they don't get them from us, right? You know what I mean? Because like we're not the ones who export that shit. We used to export a lot of soybeans before last year. Now they're getting them from places like Brazil, um, and pork. But I think China would be okay without the U.S. The only problem is their neighborhood, right? Like, so if Indonesia or India or fucking, you know, Malaysia, Burma, and any of these places decided to get froggy, they could just fuck up all of China's like shipping in an afternoon, right? And like there would be no more like they have to go through the Straits of Malacca to get through, right? And it's just like they're super vulnerable, and their navy
Right.
can't defend their shit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I pretty much, from what I understand, I agree. I mean, I think, I mean, really, this is the thing is like America is basically providing uh, the protection racket of the ports for the world. And Trump basically did say that, which I think is kind of true. Like, now, again, is it also like we're the bullies and we're like taking everybody's milk money or whatever? Like, yeah,
No,
probably
that's the
that's
problem. That's why Americans are like fucking upset, right? Is like, okay, so this is the argument between the two Americans, right? It is the global management class, right? So, okay, in the 1970s, we decided, hey, listen, and I mean, like, it is costing us too much to be like a global manufacturer. What we should do is we should just be the global fucking managers, right? The management class. But the problem is like you only need so many managers, and so like that's the people who like we're arguing us as a group, like me, you, everybody on our side, the right wing, whatever it is. We're arguing with the global. We're arguing with the global management class, the professional managerial class, the PMC, right? You know, I mean, these motherfuckers here are 100% reliant upon these global supply chains and want this shit to continue. And a lot of that is in government. That's like CIA, NSA, all that type of shit. Same thing, State Department, right? This is what the argument is, right? Is like, hey, listen, we live here, we want to benefit from this. And they're like, no, we just want to keep these capital flows open because this provides me a job. And that's what the managers are saying. You know what I mean? And so we're all over here like, Brad, listen, we don't give a fuck about your cheap plastic stuff. We want to be able to afford homes and live like human beings. And they're like, no, we're just going to replace you with immigrants. Go eat a dick and go lay down somewhere and fucking die. We don't want anything to do with you. That's the fucking problem, right? Is everybody thinks it's like, oh, there's some big plan to depopulate, whatever, da da da. No, they just don't care about the working class. They fucking hate the working class because the managers have always hated the working class. This is where like I know like everybody like fucking hates Marx, but he 100% was right about this shit, right? This is where the class thing comes in. You need to understand the class struggle in politics in order to understand exactly what the fuck is going on, right? Like if you want to just like stand here and negate class altogether and pretend that like, oh, we're all just one people, you're gonna fucking die. Like you will lose this battle like every day. You know what I mean? And you're gonna continue to lose, and you'll lose more and more every fucking year until you're basically in a barrio somewhere. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah.
Begging
Well,
for fucking scraps.
I agree with that, but one of the biggest problems that I see is that most of the people talking about class are working for the management class as like a like pseudo Marxist like, gang, if you will,
Mm.
for those people. Like NYC is a good example of that. I'm sure you've seen that before where it's like these like rich kids are running like their little like Manson family cult, like saying like you need to get with the program and it's all about class, but then like all their bosses are like these like rich ass people that hate these people, that are lower class people. But I agree with you. I
They
mean,
LARP
I do agree with you
this
though.
shit, right? Like yo, these motherfuckers are the managers, right? These people who are like they're whining about identity is what they're talking about. They're not talking about class. They're talking about identity. They don't understand class at all in any fucking way. Is the issue. Like you have to have a class-based, identity-based type of deal. and that is just counterintuitive to everything that liberalism stands for, and in particular neoliberalism and neoliberal capital.
Right. Machine, would you say that this is like well known in the Muslim world as well? Or because like I know that people, everybody says that it's like one thing or the other, but I think it's everywhere. But would you say that there's awareness of this within like Islam? I'm not even necessarily saying here in America, but I'm saying everybody. I think that's the psyop of Mamdani is they're like, look, he's a socialist, he's a Marxist, he's a class warrior or whatever. It's like I think that that's a LARP personally. Like I don't think he's like you know Mr. Islam or anything personally, but do you think that there's awareness of like the class struggle within Islam, like in Saudi Arabia or these countries, or is that more of like a Western only thing?
I
Like
mean,
I know
usually the
like in Algeria and Paris and places like I've talked to those people, they definitely believe in it, but I don't know about like Pakistan or on any other
yeah, like
place. So.
yeah, like usually like the pan Arab whole thing has been like um influenced by socialism. So they had leaders that were sort of anti-Islamist, that were sort of pan Arabists that led a bunch of communist revolutions over there. But
Oh, so you're saying the people that are pro that are generally against Islam,
right, yeah.
like
So
a
it seems like
Giorgiani kind of type of person in a way,
yeah, it
right?
would seem like right.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because shit, I was just thinking about I was talking to because I've talked to some people from Algeria and people like that, but on these TikTok panels, all the Muslim panels that are supposedly Muslim panels, there's always like some of them that are woke, but it's really weird because like they actually hate. They're like, "Oh, you're from Iraq. Fuck you, bro. You're not even really an Arab, or whatever, something to that effect." And it's like it's kind of weird because it's like it's
Why?
very very similar to like what happens in America, where they're like, "Oh, you're not a real white person, or you're not a real this,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
you're not a
Oh
real
yeah.
black, or whatever."
Yeah.
It's
Every
like
place has
crazy.
that. Yeah, like basically Iraqis are like the Mexicans of the Arabs, right? And so are the Yemenis because they're short and dark, right? They don't look like tall and white like the other Arabs. So it's like
Yeah, that's
if you
funny.
even look
Like
at
I
them, they
had
look different.
Yeah, like the only Muslim people I knew as a kid was like this guy named Yasser from Iraq, and his family's house got destroyed by like tanks rolling over his house, and so he fled to America. And he was like this short, dark. I liked him. I think he became a doctor or something, but I was pretty young. I was like 11, 12 when I met this kid, but he was a friend of mine. And then there was another one named, I can't remember his name, but it was like Zara or something like that. And this dude used to bring like this fucking 7-inch fucking like butcher knife in his boot every day to school. And nobody ever ratted him out because they were scared of him. But I thought he was pretty cool. But he had like this super rough kid from Iraq. And then you had this other kid that was like, super like nerdy, like his house burned down and he still came to school the same day. This kind of kid.
Yeah,
And
Iraqis run the gambit. I mean, I've seen like Iraqis. There was this. I remember I was working at this fucking paper factory. Right, I was like a forklift driver, and this guy was like he was like a press operator, and we were making like magazine leaflets or whatever at this place called Appleton Paper. And there was this little like a bunch of Iraqis who worked in there, and one of them, I swear to God, he looked like Tony Montana, but he was like 4'5", right? This little tiny ass, super brown motherfuckers, right? But then like there was these other Iraqis who were kind of like lighter skin, looked more like Egyptian almost, I mean, but they were still like from Iraq, you know, like they run the gambit, but like they're most definitely different people in different places, in different classes, in different breeds of human. I mean, like the upper class are like the more Saddam Hussein looking motherfuckers, right? And then like the lower class are more like the dark, short, Mexican looking people.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
and
so
by the way,
weird.
bro,
I never
that's
really thought about
normal.
it like that.
Yeah, like so. Okay, check this out. You know when like Haiti and Jamaica and like all these places in like the Caribbean, right? Where there's like black people and like black people running to the Dominican Republic. the people who are president and get elected president are all lighter skinned people. Like they don't elect dark skinned motherfuckers to run things. And like in the Spanish world, like there's layers of like Spaniards, right? There's like Puerto Ricans, then Cubans, then Mexicans, right? Then like fucking Brazilians, then fucking Costa Ricans, and then there's like Hondurans and fucking Guatemalans and all these other like weird motherfuckers who they don't like. They're considered like lower class Spaniards or Hispanic.
Well, what's interesting is like the big argument I've been noticing, and this is happening worldwide because I have friends who live in like Asia and stuff like this.
Oh yeah.
The real big argument they're saying is like, well, that's just because of internalized racism, and that this is a new thing that has been imposed on them. And like, I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I feel like in China, like a long time ago, like the light skinned tall people probably, I don't know, got were I don't know. It's like it's kind of a weird argument to me.
Yo, tall people always get like more love, you know what I mean? And lighter motherfuckers always get more love in almost every, you know what I mean, like place you go to. Right? And it's not internalized racism or any dumb bullshit like that. It's white has always been considered as human being as being more pure, right? Because it's like the color of snow and all that type of shit. And it doesn't really have anything to do with racism. It does now because like white people have adopted that label since the fucking 1500s, right? When that first started becoming a thing, when you had to separate out like the whites from the people who were in the colonies, you know, the indigenous motherfuckers and the slaves they brought over. And then they got picked up by the English and then put in the law. Like originally when you had slavery in America, right? Like, slavery started off in North America as indentured servitude. It was not slavery. Chattel slavery and the laws that came with it came later, right? In like the fucking 17 and like 1800s. In like the 1600s and like early part of the 17th century or the 18th century, which was early 1700s, like they had white and black slaves in the field, which were indentured servants, and they mixed. And that created the Melungeons, which we know today in the Appalachians. Yeah, like in the Appalachian Mountains in Tennessee and now Virginia and PA too as well, right?
Yeah, I saw this video saying that Abraham Lincoln was a Melungeon. I had never heard that before, but I don't know if that's true or not. But
I mean, it's a possibility, you know what I mean? But like these are all things that we don't really, you know what I mean, like understand in our history. And like the reason why these people like exist is because they had to run away after laws changed. Because they were living on the Piedmont farming, right? And they had to run to the mountains because they didn't have a fucking choice. Because they were taking their fucking land, you know what I mean, and trying to enslave them and like label them as black people. They literally came up with a whole like system of lies about who they are. Like they called themselves Portuguese and fucking Spanish and all this other type of shit just to get away from like, you know what I mean, the idea that they were mixed with fucking black people, which is what they were.
right. Shit, hold on 1 second. Dude, I got to take this phone call really quick because it's almost 5 o'clock and this place is about to close. Let me, if you guys are still able to hang out for a minute, I'll come right back. I know Machine has a show soon. What time is your show, Machine? Because your schedule just changed.
Oh, sorry, I was washing my hands. But yeah,
There you go.
this thing is gonna start in like an hour and a half. But the thing is that I do have to call somebody too. So let's just go ahead and end this here.
Yeah, I want to continue this conversation though. If
Yeah,
you're
so
around
we'll
later,
continue tomorrow.
if you guys are later, if you guys are around later tonight, well, I know you're doing your show tonight, but
Right.
yeah, you guys hit me up later. I have to make this call before this place closes, and
Yeah, it's no worries, dude. Yeah.
I'll be on
Um,
Discord. You know what I mean?
all right, cool.
Holler
Man.
at
I'll
me,
hit
man.
you, hit you guys up later,
Yeah,
and
Mount, as always, my
try.
brother. Later, my
Yeah.
brother. Peace.
Yeah,
Yeah,
blessings.
appreciate you guys.
All right.
Yeah,
Sorry to
peace
end
out.
it really abruptly, but I just realized the time too.
Yeah, it's
All
all
right,
good.
appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, peace on.